Chapter 846. The First Light of Dawn. The light of dawn dyed everything within 1,000 miles. Gu Qing-shan stood in the middle of the cold jade forest and gestured. The 16 divine guards immediately stopped in their track. The figure of light spoke. They can stop here, there is no need for too many people to know about human spies. Gu Qing-shan looked at the 16 divine guards. The 16 divine guards immediately knelt down on one knee. Your Majesty, please allow us to follow you and protect you. Gu Qing-shan chuckled. None of you are as strong as I am, there is no need to follow me. Return and watch over that human female cultivator for me, do not let anyone enter the Grand Divine Palace or get close to her. She is related to the future of our divine race, yes. The 16 divine guards replied in unison, then turned around and flew towards the sky beyond heaven. Let us continue forward, Gu Qing-shan told the figure of light. Very well, the figure of light replied. They flew deeper into the forest. A few moments later, the two of them stopped in front of a large tree. The figure of light spoke to the tree. Come out. The tree split open as a middle-aged cultivator appeared. He had a long beard, wore a Taoist robe, and gave off a faint sense of pressure. This man was clearly someone who held great authority over life and death for a long time. The Taoist cautiously observed the figure of light, then looked at Gu Qing-shan and doubtfully asked, Venerable deities, I don't think I've met you before. Gu Qing-shan looked at the figure of light. The figure of light explained, to hide from the great cultivators of humanity, as well as the desolate race's investigation, we have placed people in the most important positions of humanity unless absolutely necessary. These people do not normally have any relations with us. Furthermore, without a token of trust, they will not recognize you as a human or a deity. Then what do they recognize? Gu Qing-shan asked. The figure of light took out a coin and tossed it to the cultivator. The cultivator received the coin, checked it a bit, then appeared relaxed. Gu Qing-shan was surprised. So it's money. This middle-aged Taoist knelt down in front of the figure of light and Gu Qing-shan, sincerely speaking. This subordinate is the sect master of the Drifting Moon Immortal sect, Zhao Wuzong, greets the two great deities. The figure of light told Gu Qing-shan. This is Zhao Wuzong. He spends most of his time hiding in the depths of the Drifting Moon Immortal sect, rarely going out into the world. He doesn't have any close relationships with cultivators of the same realm, so you won't draw any suspicion by using his identity. Hearing that, Gu Qing-shan told Zhao Wuzong, Stand up. Understood. Now we need to borrow your identity for something. May I ask what this subordinate should do? The figure of light spoke. I will perform a spell on both you and the divinity next to me. He will take your appearance and use your identity to do a certain thing. During this time, you will need to hide yourself and make sure not to expose yourself. Drifting Moon Immortal Sect leader Zhao Wuzong's expression gradually relaxed. He thought it was something important, so he was going to use his identity. That was easy. He just needed to find a place to hide for a few days. This subordinate understands, he loudly replied. The figure of light reached both hands out and said, Come, each of you take one of my hands. Gu Qing-shan took its hand. Zhao Wuzong also did as he was told. The figure of light told Gu Qing-shan. This is to use the power of law to change your appearance. You will take on the appearance and presence of this human cultivator, but don't worry, your strength will not change at all. In fact, this human cultivator was specifically chosen by me, a spell cultivator with the ability to use water elemental ice. Then how do I return to my original appearance? Gu Qing-shan asked. This is a high-level concealment technique imitated from the bygone era. It has many uses, but it doesn't have any restraining power. If you want to change back, just destroy it with everything you have. The figure of light replied. It continued to remind her. The only thing you need to be careful of is that we divine race don't have human inner sight, we use telepathy, so if you run into other human cultivators, make sure you don't give yourself away at all costs. Gu Qing-shan was a bit surprised and smiled. Then I can rest assured, While saying so, he had already taken on the appearance of the middle-aged cultivator. Gu Qing Shan waved her hand in the void of space and turned the ice into a mirror. He took a look at himself and found that he really was the same. But I'm still the god of frost and chill on the inside. A bit weaker than mystery of all beings equal. It was now that Gu Qing Shan walked in front of Zhao Wuzong. Give me all of your personal belongings, Gu Qing Shan said. Ah? Yes, Venerable One, Zhao Wuzong was a bit surprised and hurriedly replied. He took out his personal belongings as well as a few inventory bags. It wasn't until he took off the frost blade on his side that he hesitated a bit. This was the most precious blade in the entire sect, its value couldn't be measured. Seeing that, Gu Qing Shan chuckled. I have no use for these pieces of trash of yours, it's only to make it easier for me to disguise as you that I have no choice but to keep them with me. After a bit of thought, he took out the frost staff and waved it in front of Zhao Wuzong. This was the god of frost and chill's weapon, a divine armament. It was thanks to this staff that Gu Qing Shan managed to learn many of the god of frost and chill's technique. As soon as he took out the frost staff, Zhao Wuzong's eyes almost popped out of their socket. He was a cultivator who practiced frost techniques. This staff in front of him was infused with numerous mystical laws of frost, so just looking at it gave him a lot of inspiration. If I could hold this staff, I wouldn't even need to cultivate to break through my understanding of the law of frost. Zhao Wuzong sighed. That's right, a divinity's personal weapon is so powerful, why would it want this frost blade in my hand? Such a powerful weapon, such power, isn't this the reason why I joined the divinities in the first place? He untied the frost blade, knelt down on one knee, and offered it to Gu Qing Shan with both hands. Gu Qing Shan received the frost blade, then tossed the staff to him and casually said, Take it from me. Zhao Wuzong hurriedly caught the frost blade and doubtfully asked, Venerable deity, what do you mean? I'll borrow your identity and weapons. I'll let you keep this divine staff for a few days as your contribution. Gu Qing Shan smiled and replied. Zhao Wuzong was ecstatic. Thank you, venerable deity. Thank you, venerable deity. You're welcome. Saying so, Gu Qing Shan slashed the frost blade in her hand at Zhao Wuzong. Zhao Wuzong's expression changed, but found that the frost blade in his hand had silently frozen his entire body. Sha! The frost blade flashed. Zhao Wuzong was cut in half and died on the spot. The figure of light asked, You killed him just like that? My identity is too important, only a dead person can keep my identity a secret, Gu Qing Shan replied. Indeed, compared to the Divine King's safety, what is the life or death of a spy? Not to mention, this is only a phantom image, so if he dies, he dies. The figure of light nodded and pointed at Zhao Wuzong's corpse. The corpse disappeared into the void of space, disappearing without a trace. Gu Qing Shan glanced at the war god Ui. A few lines of glowing text appeared. Frowny face, your own strength is inferior to Zhao Wuzong's. But because you disguised yourself as the god of frost and chill, and because you disguised yourself as Zhao Wuzong, because of this, the soul points gained from this battle cannot be determined by your own strength alone. Gu Qing Shan sent her voice straight away. Take as much as you want, remember to leave some for me, no need to tell me here. The system went silent. Ting! A line of glowing text appeared on the UI frowny face. You obtained 5 soul points. 5 soul points. Bastard, the one you killed was still the sect master, aren't you being too merciless? Gu Qing Shan silently complained. The system immediately replied. Don't forget, during the divine race's inheritance, I used a lot of soul points. Hearing it say that, Gu Qing Shan had no choice but to give up. That's right, it did help, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to obtain the secret and level up my card at the time. Ha! I can only hope that I'll be able to obtain a bit more soul points next time. While he was thinking, the figure of light took out 2 more coins and gave them to him. The figure of light carefully explained. This is the Desolate World's special warp coin. Once you arrive at the intersection of the two worlds, activate this coin to enter the Desolate World. The other is the Primordial Heaven Realm's warp coin. Activate it and you'll return. Keep in mind, both coins can only be used once. Gu Qingshan looked at the two coins curiously. They were made of different materials. The one used to travel to the Desolate World was a very rare type of coin, and it was very old. As for the one used to return to the Primordial Heaven Realm, it was the same design and style as the ones he saw in the Strife Zones. The Figure of Light asked, "Do you have any other questions about these two coins?" Gu Qingshan stayed silent and didn't ask anything. He doesn't know anything about the coins. Then, are there some sort of secret between these two different coins, or is it common knowledge known to all divinities? Without knowing this, asking anything would be risky. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, then decided to skip this question and asked in return, "Are you coming with me?" This was another very important question. Hearing that, the Figure of Light shook his head. "I don't have a true body, so I can't turn into a human and travel to the Desolate World. Not to mention, I'm a manifestation of the will of countless divinities. The Lord of Desolation would be able to sense me as soon as I appear in the Desolate World. Then go back and watch over that human female cultivator for me. Don't let anyone interrupt the creation of the Jade Disc," Gu Qingshan said. "Very well," the Figure of Light replied. Gu Qingshan emphasized, "Even the Golden Flame divinity can't touch her." The Figure of Light was a bit hesitant. Gu Qingshan walked forward and whispered into the Figure of Light's ear, "The Golden Flame divinity can only care about the future. Other than asking us for help, he won't bring any benefits to our age-of-old divinity," he continued. "In this era, this king wishes to use the Heaven Sword to serve the divinities of this era, to use this sword to change the fate of the divinities of this era." The Figure of Light remained silent. Gu Qingshan continued, "You represent the will of countless divinities of this era. Tell me, do the divinities of this era want the Golden Flame divinity's future, or do they want their own present?" The Figure of Light didn't hesitate and nodded. "I understand. I will watch over that human female cultivator and not let anyone touch her." Gu Qingshan happily retreated. The 16 divine guards, all the divinities of the sky beyond heaven, the Figure of Light, with so many divinities protecting Luo Bingli, Gu Qingshan didn't believe that the Golden Flame divinity would be able to kidnap Luo Bingli right under their noses. Now I can head to the Desolate World without worries. He tied the frost blade to his waist and recalled Zhao Wuzong's expression. "I'm leaving." Chapter 847. In the wilderness, a frosty fog was constantly manifesting. The fog quickly scattered to reveal a middle-aged cultivator. He had a long beard, wore a Taoist robe with a frost blade hanging from his waist, giving him a dignified appearance. Drifting Moon Immortal Sex Master Zhao Wuzong. Of course, the real Zhao Wuzong was already dead. This was actually Gu Qingshan borrowing his appearance and identity. Gu Qingshan was pacing back and forth in the wilderness, carefully sensing the location of the Desolate World. The Desolate World and the Primordial Heaven Realm overlapped, which was why the two worlds could be connected. Gu Qingshan had to find that place in order to enter the Desolate World. A few moments later, Gu Qingshan stopped in front of a pile of rubble. He crouched down and carefully examined the rubble in his hand. These rubble contained chaotic and powerful power, which were the Desolate World's demon stones. "Seems like this is the place," Gu Qingshan muttered. According to the Golden Flame divinity, when the bygone era humanity left, the worlds they created also disappeared, leaving only the Primordial Heaven Realm and the Primordial Wraith Realm. As for the Desolate World, it couldn't be considered a complete world. It was actually a temporary base that the bygone era humanity built before they left. The bygone era humanity used various unimaginable powers to build this place right next to the Reality Gate, allowing them to investigate and study the mysteries of the Reality Gate. After the bygone era humanity entered the Reality Gate, this place became empty. After that, the desolate race betrayed humanity and took over this place. Took over, recalling the golden flame divinity and the figure of light's words. Gu Qingshan felt that the word took over wasn't exactly accurate. Because even now, the desolate race was still exploring this place. They didn't fully understand this place either. It was just that they used power far greater than the divinities and cultivators to take over this place, not allowing any other entities to take a single step inside. Standing on top of the demon stone, Gu Qingshan reached his hand out to take the coin and crushed it. Instantly, an overwhelming power appeared out of nowhere and pulled him into the void of space. The desolate world, the wilderness, which was made up of magic stones, was filled with powerful and chaotic energy. Thunder boomed in the pitch-black night sky. The raging wind swept across the dark clouds, whistling incessantly under the influence of the chaotic power. Gu Qingshan silently appeared from thin air. With the frost blade in hand, he lightly landed on the ground. There was no sound in the surroundings. The thick smell of blood assailed their nostrils. Gu Qingshan's nose twitched. Human blood doesn't taste like this. He released his divine sense and swept it in the direction of the smell of blood. A few hundred feet away, the corpses of the desolate soldiers were strewn all over the ground. Gu Qingshan flew forward and carefully inspected the corpses. The meat isn't fresh anymore. It's been a long time, Gu Qingshan muttered. Judging from the marks on the corpses, these monsters were obviously killed by various spells and sharp weapons. In other words, the missing great cultivators were heading in this direction. Xie Guhong was also among them. If I follow Xie Guhong, I'll definitely be able to find out what exactly happened. Almost without thinking, Gu Qingshan immediately decided to follow him. The chaotic power in the sky was almost tangible, and flying would be very eye-catching, so Gu Qingshan didn't dare to fly either. He quickly ran across the barren wasteland filled with demon stones. 1 incense stick's worth of time later. Gu Qingshan had no choice but to conceal his presence and hide in a crater. The wilderness ahead of him was filled with various desolate monsters. They filled the entire wilderness. All of them had their eyes closed as if they were hibernating. Looking past these desolate monsters towards the depths of the wilderness, he could faintly make out a gigantic structure that resembled the pupil of shadow. Most likely, it was built by the bygone-era humans. Unfortunately, the entire wilderness was filled with monsters, making it impossible to pass through safely. Gu Qingshan pondered for a bit, picked up a demon stone from the ground, and threw it towards the wilderness. The demon stone only flew for a bit before it was shattered by a blurred figure. The blurred figure stopped in midair. It was a long tongue that came from a certain desolate monster on the ground. It was a giant frog with 3 eyes. Croak! It uttered a resounding cry. Instantly, many desolate monsters woke up and cautiously looked around. Whoosh! Several hundred desolate monsters flew up from the ground to check their surroundings. At this point, Gu Qingshan had already activated the camouflage formation and used the presence concealment technique. Perhaps because these monsters weren't particularly strong, they didn't notice anything. The monsters that were flying in the sky also retracted their wings and returned to their original positions. They all closed their eyes and fell asleep again. Gu Qingshan waited for a bit longer until everything returned to silence before she lightly breathed out. The entire wilderness was filled with countless monsters of all shapes and sizes. I can't make it through. But it's also unrealistic to kill my way out. Using the power of the god of frost and chill, or unleashing 700 flying swords to fully display my swordsmanship, I might be able to alert the high-level desolate monsters, or even the Lord of Desolation. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan was a bit impressed by the Lord of Desolation. He didn't set up any patrols or defenses at all, just filled the entire wilderness with monsters, who would be able to enter that place. Then, how do I make it through? Gu Qingshan fell into thought. Suddenly, not far from him, There was a hidden fluctuation of spiritual power that flashed and disappeared. Gu Qingshan's eyebrows twitched. Only humans know how to use spirit energy. In other words, there are other people here. Gu Qingshan immediately retracted the formation and formed a hand seal. He used the simplest of technique, telekinesis. This was different from a sword cultivator using their mind to control their flying swords. They couldn't precisely control objects to the point where they could transfer spirit energy into their weapons, nor could they continuously unleash powerful attacks. When using telekinesis, a cultivator could only use spirit energy to move objects. Following Gu Qingshan's hand seal, a demon stone on the ground moved a bit. Gu Qingshan immediately let go. The hand seal faded. The faint spirit energy fluctuation only existed for a split second before disappearing. The desolate monsters in the distance didn't notice it at all. But Gu Qingshan felt that this fluctuation was enough. If it was a human great cultivator, they would definitely notice the spirit energy fluctuation of this technique. This would be enough to prove that I'm a human. In this era, when facing the desolate monsters, humans are naturally united, so as long as I can prove my identity, there won't be too much of a problem. Gu Qingshan stood in the middle of the pit of rocks and silently waited for a few moments. A few moments later, a voice suddenly came from his inner sight. So it was Sect Master Zhao. Please wait a moment. The voice disappeared. Very quickly, the bottom of the pit where Gu Qingshan was standing shook a bit to reveal a large hole. A glowing red talisman flew out from the hole and spoke with a cultivator's voice. Frowny face, Brother Zhao, it's not safe here. Once the chaotic tides erupt, you'll be easily discovered by the monsters. Please come with us. Gu Qingshan clasped his fist. Thank you. Without hesitation, he jumped into the hole and followed the talisman until he reached a tunnel. A white-haired cultivator was already waiting at the entrance of the tunnel. When he saw Gu Qingshan in front of him and sensed the spirit energy fluctuations coming from Gu Qingshan's body, he finally relaxed a bit. Come quickly. As soon as Gu Qingshan came out from the tunnel, the white-haired old man put the talisman away and formed a hand seal towards the tunnel. The tunnel instantly disappeared as if it was never there in the first place. At the same time, another voice came. Sect Master Zhao, why are you here as well? Gu Qingshan turned around, only to see 7 swords silently manifesting behind the person who spoke. Chapter 848. There were a total of 4 people in the cave. One was the talisman wielder who opened and closed the cave. The other was Xie Guhong with 7 swords on his back. The last one was a burly man with a bare upper body and a long staff in his hand. The last one was Gu Qingshan himself. Gu Qingshan clasped his fist towards the 3 of them and spoke. Gentlemen, I didn't think I would meet you here, the white-haired old man doubtfully asked. Sect Master Zhao, why did you also come to such a dangerous place? Gu Qingshan casually replied. My sect has been destroyed. As the sect master, how could I not avenge this? The 3 of them went silent. Indeed, because the Drifting Moon Immortal sect was too close to the front lines during this war, they had to shoulder the responsibility of being the transit point of the war, becoming a thorn in the eyes of the monsters. The Drifting Moon Immortal sect was finally destroyed. This was the pain of humanity as a whole. Hearing Gu Qingshan say that, the 3 of them felt a sense of sympathy and respect. He came here alone to take the enemy down with him. Xie Guhong sighed. Sect Master Zhao, the divinities are still here. After we return safely, I will definitely pray to the divinities to help you rebuild your sect. Thank you for your kindness, but I've made up my mind, Gu Qingshan replied. Hearing that, the 3 of them didn't try to persuade him any further. At their level, every decision they made couldn't be easily changed. The burly man changed the topic. The fusion of the 2 worlds is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We also felt that rather than staying in the Heaven Realm, it would be better to come here and explore, Gu Qingshan replied. I also think so, Xie Guhong asked. Sect Master Zhao, how long have you been here? Not too long, I was just thinking about how to get past these monsters when you noticed me, Gu Qingshan replied. Looking at them, he recalled the old man and the burly man's identities. When he was still a disciple of Baron Cloud Heavenly Palace, Gu Qingshan had heard about the various combatants of humanity, and after becoming the Divine King, he gained even more detailed information about them. This white-haired old man was the Grand Elder of a sect. He was proficient in the 5 elements spell techniques and the 6 arts, and he was particularly adept at divination. The burly man was a martial Dao rogue cultivator, but his personal strength was one of the few strongest in the human race, and he was almost invincible in close combat. All 3 of them were grand cultivators above the Void Seer realm. The old man was a Void Wanderer realm cultivator, according to the standard of the future. Even within the 900 million world layers, he could be considered a combatant. This was how they entered the mainstream of the 900 million world layers. Their strength was widely praised by all living beings. The burly man was slightly stronger, a Void Revolution realm cultivator. A Void Revolution realm cultivator could be called a ruler within the 900 million world layers, but they were not the strongest among the rulers. The so-called Void Wanderer realm, in the future, refers to those combatants who can break through the void of space with a single strike and see the 90th layer of the world. The so-called Void Revolution realm was a combatant who could break through the void of space with a single strike, causing the 800 world layers to appear in front of them one after another. Above these 2 realms there was another realm. According to the standard of the 900 million world layers, this realm was the strongest among the rulers, able to cause 3,000 worlds to appear in the void of space with a single strike without dissipating, which was why it was called the 3,000 worlds realm. Because of this, the 3 realms were 90 Void Wanderer, 800 Void Revolution, and 3,000 world. The difference between these 3 realms was so great that it was almost impossible to defeat an opponent above one's level. According to what Gu Qingshan knew, Xie Guhong had already reached 3,000 worlds realm a long time ago, a combatant among combatants, a top-tier existence among humanity. When Baron Cloud Heavenly Palace was destroyed, he had already broken through this realm and reached Paragon Realm. Paragon Realm was the realm of divinities. At this realm, they could create the earth, water, fire, and wind elements, using the power of the 4 pillars to create a new world. When humanity was about to be destroyed in the Age of Old, Xie Guhong was already close to breaking through to Paragon Realm. The divinities purposely sparred with him to test his true strength. In the end, even though Xie Guhong hadn't reached Paragon Realm yet, his swordsmanship was so extraordinary that he accidentally won against the divinities by half a strike, which led to the destruction of Baron Cloud Heavenly Palace. Gu Qingshan turned into Zhao Wuzong. Zhao Wuzong was at the peak of Void Revolution realm, a bit stronger than both the burly man and the old man, but much weaker than Xie Guhong. Gu Qingshan quickly determined their strength and asked, "Have the 3 of you thought of a way to get past these monsters?" Xie Guhong replied, "There's no way to kill them all, and it would easily alert the powerful monsters hiding in the depths of this world, so we're waiting. Gu Qingshan asked in confusion. "That's right," the old man continued. "Every once in a while, a chaotic tide would erupt in this place, followed by a very strange voice." The burly man continued, "We've already grasped the basic pattern. When the next chaotic tide arrives, we'll respond to that voice and attempt to break into the depths of the desolate land." "A strange voice?" Gu Qingshan asked in confusion. The old man replied, "The first few times that voice appeared, we ignored it out of caution." Xie Guhong continued, "There's no other way now, so we're going to take a gamble and wait for the next chaotic tide to erupt in order to respond to that voice." "Wait a minute, aren't you afraid that this might be a trap set up by the Lord of Desolation?" Gu Qingshan asked. Xie Guhong replied, "Before we discovered you, we heard the Lord of Desolation's furious roar that resounded across the entire world, as if he was being held back by something." The old man continued, Furthermore, before we discovered Sect Master Zhao, I had performed a divination regarding the chaotic tides and received a safe omen. Divination was very profound. As long as a cultivator was skilled in divination and was willing to spend a certain amount of vitality, they would be able to obtain a reasonably reliable omen. Not to mention, these three great cultivators' spirit sense was quite high, so their premonitions of danger were quite accurate. Gu Qingshan slowly nodded. "Then we'll wait together," he said. A few moments later, suddenly the expressions of the three people changed at the same time. The burly man muttered in a low voice, "The chaotic tides are coming." Everyone immediately went silent. The so-called chaotic tides came from the demon stones that were piled up all over the desolate world. These innumerable demon stones caused the void of space to be filled with chaotic power, accumulating more and more until it would erupt every once in a while. Boom! An intense explosion resounded across heaven and earth. The elemental spirit energy clashed and overlapped with each other, giving rise to millions of sharp screeches that sounded like the mournful wails of a gigantic wraith. The underground cave also began to shake and tremble. The chaotic tides continued to unleash its power for several dozen breaths worth of time. At some point, a friendly female voice resounded in the cave. Frowny Face detected that 4 humans are in danger, attempting to grant a safe escape method due to the system's severe lack of energy. There is only one choice left. About to grant you shadow origin power to conceal your presence, would you accept? The 4 of them exchanged glances. The other 3 were fine, after all, they've already seen it once. But Gu Qingshan was completely stunned. Lines of glowing text were quickly scrolling through his retina. Frowny Face discovered large-scale human war system, attempting connection, attention. The other party has severe lack of energy, connection failed. Please replenish the other party's energy to awaken this large-scale war system. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask in his mind, "System, what kind of energy does it need?" "Ting." The war god system replied. "I haven't come into contact with it yet, so I don't know how it works. You will need to find out on your own." Gu Qingshan fell into thought. At this point, Xiegu Hong spoke up. "I'll go first. If there's a trap, I'll rush out and fight the monsters until the very last moment." He turned to the remaining 3 cultivators. "If the situation gets to that point, I'll do everything I can to attract the monster's attention. Whether you want to leave or continue to search for a way forward is up to you." After saying so, Xiegu Hong didn't wait for the other 3 to react and declared to the void of space, "I accept." The female voice immediately replied, "About to grant you shadow origin power, attention, due to the system's lack of energy. This origin power can only provide you with concealment for 1 hour. From the void of space, a series of dark gray rings suddenly manifested and circled around Xiegu Hong. The rings slowly faded away. Xiegu Hong's figure also disappeared in front of the 3 of them. The 3 of them released their inner sight to search, but still couldn't sense Xiegu Hong's presence. The white-haired old man asked with uncertainty, "Palace Master Xie, are you still here?" In front of them, Xiegu Hong's voice resounded. "How strange, I'm clearly still standing here, but I can't sense myself at all. Not even inner sight," the burly man replied. "Since you've accepted that entity's technique, we'll soon know if this is a trap or not." The 4 of them silently waited for a few moments. Chapter 849. The Desolate World. In the vast field of rubble, a chaotic tide that swept across the entire world was wreaking havoc. Various elemental powers, as well as incomprehensible powers, filled the void of space, forming a massive storm that swept across the land. On the ground, the countless desolate monsters were feeling a bit restless. But this was because of the chaotic tide. It had nothing to do with what happened to Xiegu Hong. Seeing this, everyone calmed down. The burly man and the white-haired old man exchanged glances, both feeling a bit fortunate. That thing was able to easily detect their presence, so if it was an enemy, it would be too terrifying. Imitating Xie Guhong, they said, accept to the void of space, and were granted the ability to temporarily conceal themselves. Xie Guhong's voice resounded from the void of space. Seems like I'll be able to explore the depths of the desolate world. I'll go with you, the white-haired old man said. Yes, I'll go as well, the burly man agreed. Sect Master Zhao, what do you plan to do? Xie Guhong asked. Gu Qingshan replied. Fellow Dao Seeker Xie, you go first, I need to think about where this voice came from. Xie Guhong's voice resounded. Very well, we'll split up. I'll investigate the desolate world, you'll look into the secret of this voice. This was the most reasonable arrangement. Xie Guhong's group would have an hour of concealment time to explore this world. With their current level of thinking, they probably wouldn't be able to understand what this voice represented, nor would they know how to deal with it. Since Zhao Wuzong was interested in this, he'll figure it out for himself. Very well, we'll split up. Gu Qingshan slowly nodded and asked. If this voice appeared at the same time as the chaotic tide, how often does the chaotic tide erupt? Xie Guhong replied. We've calculated it, roughly every 3 to 4 hours, the chaotic tides will erupt once. Gu Qingshan continued. In other words, you can only conceal yourselves for an hour, you won't be able to make it before the next chaotic tide erupts, Xie Guhong confirmed. That's right, we only have an hour, we won't be able to replenish this concealment ability again, time was of the essence, so he told Gu Qingshan. Sect Master Zhao, take care of yourself, we'll be going first. Gu Qingshan said. Wait! He patted his inventory bag, took out an array plate, and quickly arranged a teleportation array. 3 single-use teleportation talismans were thrown into the void of space, and caught by Xie Guhong's trio. If there's any danger, you can return here immediately, Gu Qingshan said. Very good, Sect Master Zhao is truly meticulous, Xie Guhong praised. But I've never heard that Sect Master Zhao is proficient in formations. The white-haired elder was puzzled. Gu Qingshan said indifferently, who doesn't have some tricks up their sleeves? The 3 of them could not help but nod. Indeed, which high-level great cultivator didn't have some tricks that others didn't know about? The voices of the 3 people resounded from the void. Take care! Gu Qingshan also cupped her fists and said, Take care! A crack appeared at the top of the cave, but it quickly closed after a few breaths. They left. Now, only Gu Qingshan was left in the cave. He began to think quickly. From the information he obtained from talking to the others, whenever the chaotic tides erupt, that female voice would appear. This was a very regular occurrence, but the female voice said that it lacked energy. Then, how did she maintain the ability to appear, investigate, question, and prepare shadow origin power for the 3 of them to conceal themselves every time? Don't these things require energy? There are many possible answers, so I can't be sure right now. Gu Qingshan continued to think. At this point, the secret of this war system had already surpassed what Xie Guhong discovered in the desolate world. The chaotic tides. Could it be that the chaotic tides endowed humanity's large-scale war system with energy? And the chaotic tides' energy comes from demon stones. The entire desolate world is filled with demon stones. There shouldn't be too much of a mistake with this deduction, but I still need to confirm it. At this point, the commotion outside slowly calmed down. Gu Qingshan immediately realized something. The chaotic tides are about to end. This isn't good. If the war system loses its power, I won't be able to conceal myself for the next 6 to 8 hours. Gu Qingshan immediately replied. I accept your arrangement. As soon as he said so, a series of gray rings began to circle around him. Very quickly, his figure also disappeared into the void of space. Gu Qingshan didn't waste any more time and directly asked, How do I replenish the war system's energy? There was no response from the void of space. The female voice didn't answer him. After waiting for a while, Gu Qingshan noticed that the outside world had returned to silence. The chaotic tides are over. It seems that the system has fallen silent again. Fortunately, I've already concealed myself. Or rather, my concealment had used up the last of the other party's energy. Gu Qingshan sighed and glanced at the war god Ui. A few lines of glowing text were already hovering on the war god Ui. Frowny face. You've obtained the support of Shadow Origin Power. You've gained 2 hours of concealment. As the source of this concealment is World Origin Power, the desolate monsters are unable to detect your movements. Gu Qingshan quickly skimmed through it. What is Shadow Origin Power? Gu Qingshan asked. Ting. The system let out a clear chime. In consideration of how poor you are, your soul points will not be deducted for now. Give the following answer. Shadow Origin Power is the source of Shadow-type world power, PS. Now that you have begun to understand the layers and structure of power, give the following additional explanation. Power can be fundamentally divided into 2 types. One is World Origin Power, the other is the soul points of living beings. The countless powers that all living beings in the infinite worlds possess ultimately originate from these 2 types of power. Gu Qingshan pondered. Divinities imitate humans, so they use soul points? Correct, the system replied. Then, which one is stronger? Gu Qingshan continued to ask. Objectively speaking, both types of power have their own advantages, but from the war god system's point of view, you will need to answer this question yourself. Just like what you did in the suspended world. The system replied. Gu Qingshan was surprised. The suspended world, at the time of that world's destruction, I carried the mystery of all beings equal, and fought against Rakshasa, who carried the mystery of all beings equal in a battle of life and death. Gu Qingshan recalled how he killed the god of frost and chill. Logically speaking, I shouldn't have been able to win against him. But he was heavily wounded by the 7-colored spear, and was completely focused on inheriting the Divine King's throne, so he wasn't paying attention and had his head bitten off by my 6-legged winged snake form. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit and muttered, The problem isn't power, but how to use it and when to use it. The war god system remained silent and said nothing. It seemed to have silently agreed with Gu Qingshan's conclusion. After thinking that through, Gu Qingshan calmed down and began to scan himself with inner sight. Indeed, even I can't notice myself. I'm currently in a state of absolute invisibility. Then let's begin. He untied the frost blade on his waist, held it in his hand, and closed his eyes. His inner sight spread out, passed through the dirt, and enveloped a demon stone on the ground. Divine skill, shadow shift. Gu Qingshan disappeared from the hole and reappeared in the middle of the barren wasteland. He was still quite a bit of distance away from the sea of monsters, so it was a good place to hide. Taking out an inventory bag, Gu Qingshan began to fill it up with demon stones. These things are filled with chaotic energy, but they can be used to activate the war system. I need to bring some with me. The inventory bag was filled to the brim with 500 cubic meters. After a bit of hesitation, Gu Qingshan took out another inventory bag. This inventory bag was one of the many inventory bags Zhao Wuzong had on him, as well as the emptiest one. There were only some pills and spirit cooking inside. Gu Qingshan put all of these things into his inventory bag, then continued to fill the empty inventory bag with demon stones. There's no harm in carrying a bit more, there's no harm in throwing it away. After the inventory bag was filled to the brim, Gu Qingshan leapt up into the air. At this point, the chaotic tides had just ended, so the distorted energy in the void of space had all been vented away, temporarily returning to a relatively calm state. Gu Qingshan hovered in the air, determined his direction, then flew towards a building in the distance. On the ground below him, the monsters that filled the entire wilderness were crowded together, but none of them noticed his presence. Looking at these monsters, Gu Qingshan suddenly realized something. He glanced at the war god Ui, selected war god title, and equipped the title Sword Demon. Then, he chose a large desolate monster and looked at it for a moment. Countless sword shadows surged crazily in his eyes. Title skill, True Soul Slashing Eyes. In a split second, the monster disappeared, then reappeared. When it reappeared, it had already been cut in half and was dead. The surrounding monsters became rowdy. But no matter how they looked around, they couldn't find anything. After a while, the monsters couldn't resist the temptation of flesh and blood and began to devour the dead monster's body. At the same time, new lines of notification appeared on Gu Qingshan's war god Ui frowny face. You've killed a desolate soldier, as you've disguised yourself as the god of frost and chill, as well as the drifting moon immortal sect master Zhao Wuzong, your personal strength. That Gu Qingshan immediately cut off the system and hurriedly said, "In this battle, I only used my own strength, don't use that as an excuse." The lines of glowing text on the war god Ui stop. A few moments later, a new prompt appeared. You've killed a desolate soldier, as you only used your own strength. This battle's judgment is as follows: you've obtained 30,000 soul points. Reading through these notifications, Gu Qingshan looked up at the sky and sighed, almost unable to suppress the smile on his face. The notifications continued frowny face as the system had provided a large amount of soul points for you during the divine race's inheritance ceremony. The system will be extracting a portion of the soul points obtained during this battle after comprehensive calculation. The system has determined the amount of soul points to be extracted. The system has completed extraction. Chapter 850. Looking at the remaining 3 soul points displayed on the war god Ui, Gu Qingshan almost fell down from the sky. There was a sea of monsters below. Even if Gu Qingshan had the support of invisibility, he would still be discovered if he hit a monster's head. He finally regained control of his body, regained his composure and asked, "System, how much soul points did you pay for me in advance? Tell me clearly." The war god system stayed silent and said nothing. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask again, "At least tell me a number, that way I'll know when I can pay you back." A few moments later. Ting! The system finally responded with a clear chime. "Last time, when I paid for you in advance, the system used up too much soul points. The system received a certain degree of damage. It will most likely require a very long time as well as an endless supply of soul points to slowly recover. A very long time. An endless supply of soul points. Slowly recover." As soon as these 3 words came out, even Gu Qingshan felt a bit impressed. He sighed. "I'm guessing, when I first learned how to perform, you also learned from me, didn't you?" The system said nothing. After waiting for a while, Gu Qingshan didn't get a reply, so he could only continue flying forward. Then he thought about it. After all, the system did save him during the apocalypse and brought him back to the past. Not to mention, the system did help him pay soul points in advance. That's why Gu Qingshan didn't think too much about it. Isn't it just soul points? As long as you don't screw up at crucial moments, I'll take care of you, okay? As Gu Qingshan flew across the sky, he occasionally glanced at the horde of monsters below and took 1 or 2 lives. He didn't want to kill too many to avoid attracting the attention of monsters that were too powerful. Very quickly, his soul points increased to 22. This was a very good improvement. Flying. Even with his Void Beholder realm strength, it still took Gu Qingshan a few dozen minutes to fly at full speed. He finally made it past the endless horde of monsters and reached a city wall. This was a huge city wall made of black bricks of an unknown material. It stretched from one side of the horizon to the other, with no end in sight. In front of the city wall there was a warning sign. It was mottled with the marks of time, but one could barely make out the words written in the desolate era. "You are prohibited from climbing the city walls, standing on the city walls, and crossing the city walls. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences." Gu Qingshan took 2 steps back and looked up at the city wall. There was nothing on it. Gu Qingshan thought for a moment, then took out a magic stone and threw it towards the city wall. As soon as the magic stone flew over the city wall, it was immediately brushed by a gray wind. The magic stone disappeared without a trace. The gray wind also quickly disappeared into the void. Gu Qingshan's expression turned grim. The 6 paths great mountain sword appeared from the void of space. Shanu appeared and nervously told him, "Gongzi, it's the winds of chaotic tribulation." Gu Qingshan nodded. He didn't expect the winds of chaotic tribulation to be blowing on the city wall. This was a wind that could destroy countless worlds, and no one had ever been able to stop it. As far as Gu Qingshan knew, only the Grand Tai Wei mountain of the Samsara Huang Quan path could stop it. But here, this ferocious wind was being stopped by the city wall. Gu Qingshan put his hand on the city wall. Lines of glowing text appeared on the war god UI. Perhaps it was just Gu Qingshan's imagination, but after he stopped worrying about the soul points, the war god UI's display speed seemed to have sped up a bit. Discovered structure. Bygone era war wall description. This is a city wall built by humanity in the bygone era. Humanity relied on this grand city wall to stop the winds of chaotic tribulation as well as other things. Description. All of the materials used to build this city wall were taken from the greatest crystallization and achievement of the bygone era human civilization. Bygone era Samsara. Huang Quan path. Shanu carefully observed the city wall with a look of intimacy on her face. "Gongzi, this seems to have been built from the Grand Tai Wei mountain," she whispered. Gu Qingshan softly sighed. "That's right, this is truly shocking." He went silent again, silently thinking about this information. The Samsara theory was the greatest crystallization of humanity's civilization? Speaking of which, the Samsara that the divinities created had already been destroyed by the Lord of Desolation. Why did the divinities hide it from him and secretly create the Samsara? The Lord of Desolation was so furious that he killed the Divine King right away. This is also a question. Why? Gu Qingshan closed his eyes and carefully recalled what the Lord of Desolation said when he killed the Divine King. "The Samsara is not something that I can control. You dared to imitate the power of humanity and create it, which is the same as challenging my authority. Perhaps you don't know this, but this thing is very weak right now, but it will grow by itself and eventually turn into the greatest power of humanity, to the point where even you and I will not be able to control it." Gu Qingshan opened his eyes. He had a few ideas, but he needed more clues to confirm them. As for now, Gu Qingshan carefully observed the city wall. Although Xie Gu Hong's trio didn't understand the desolate language, they were all combatants who stood at the peak of humanity, so they wouldn't recklessly charge up the city wall to seek death. Otherwise, Xie Gu Hong wouldn't have been able to return to humanity unscathed. They must have found another way. Gu Qingshan observed for a bit and quickly noticed a layer of dust on the ground in front of the city wall. He walked forward, put his hand on the ground, and lightly knocked it. The ground was solid and unresponsive. "Seems like this isn't the place." Gu Qingshan stood up and put his hand on the wall that the ground was connected to. A voice suddenly came from inside the city wall. "Frowny face, begin examination. According to his vital signs, he is confirmed to be a human civilian, a boy. In accordance with wartime protection rules, child is permitted to enter." The city wall parted to reveal a narrow entrance that was only wide enough for Gu Qingshan to pass through. Gu Qingshan stood still for a while. "I've lived 2 lives, gone through countless wars and apocalypses, so how did I become a civilian child? What vital signs did I use to determine this? In other words, my power?" Gu Qingshan didn't want to think about it any longer. "This is a bit too much of a blow to my confidence." Suppressing the inexplicable emotions in his mind, he quickly entered the city wall. As soon as he entered, the city wall closed up behind him. A slightly slanted staircase appeared below his feet. Gu Qingshan followed this small path downwards as his thoughts fluctuated. "Seems like Xie Gu Hong's group entered the city wall from here. I wonder how old Xie Gu Hong's group was determined to be. With Xie Gu Hong's strength, he might not be a child, but a civilian teenager instead?" Gu Qingshan's thoughts were all over the place, but he maintained his vigilance and continued to follow the path deeper into the city wall. After walking for a short distance, he quickened his pace. Concealment only lasts for 2 hours, so I need to hurry. He almost used the method of falling, and kept flying towards the bottom of the road at high speed. About 100 breaths later, Gu Qingshan had reached the deepest part of the city wall. He was standing on the very last step. Leaving this step would lead to the endless darkness of the void, almost like a cliff that made it impossible to see anything, or like a bottomless abyss. No matter how far he extended his inner sight, he wouldn't be able to see what was at the bottom. Gu Qingshan waited for a while. Since Xie Gu Hong's group found this path, they wouldn't just disappear from this place for no reason. Time slowly passed. 10 breaths later, in the darkness of the distance, a cluster of stars was flying towards Gu Qingshan. In the blink of an eye, Gu Qingshan found himself surrounded by countless stars. These stars surrounded him, forming a brilliant river of stars in the boundless darkness. So brilliant, so inconceivable. Gu Qingshan regained his composure and looked at the star closest to him. The star seemed to have sensed his gaze and turned back into a card. The card depicted a beautiful woman in a white dress, looking at him with a compassionate expression. The woman spoke. "This place is almost completely destroyed. Fortunately, I can still provide you with a bit of shelter." As soon as she spoke, Gu Qingshan recognized that she was the female voice that appeared in the chaotic tides. The woman tilted her body so that Gu Qingshan could see what was happening inside the card. It was a tranquil island with beautiful scenery. As Gu Qingshan stared closely at the woman, he couldn't help but feel a sense of respect. Gu Qingshan swore that he had never felt this way in front of any divinity. He clasped his fist. "Thank you for your goodwill, but I didn't come here to seek shelter," the woman asked. "Then why did you come?" "I came here to find a way to win against the desolate race and divine race," Gu Qingshan replied. The woman continued. "Unfortunately, you came too late. The 18,800 subsystems of humanity here have all been destroyed." She gestured for Gu Qingshan to look around. "Look, those dim stars are the destroyed subsystem worlds." As Gu Qingshan looked around the galaxy, he saw quite a few dim stars. The woman continued. "The remaining 5,300 subsystem worlds are in a state of energy deficiency, unable to be activated. They are the stars that give off a faint glow. Look at that red star again." Gu Qingshan followed the girl's finger and saw a star that gave off a red glow. "What is that?" he asked. "The desolate race's king is leading his people to wreak havoc in this final secondary defense subsystem world, attempting to destroy it," the woman replied. She sighed. "The secondary defense subsystem is one of the 2 remaining functioning subsystem worlds. If it's destroyed, I'll only have 1 subsystem left." "Secondary defense?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Indeed, many of my defensive subsystem worlds have been destroyed by the desolate race," the woman replied. "The desolate race is a bit stronger than these defensive subsystems?" Gu Qingshan asked. "No, the subsystems require energy, as well as human control in order to exert their true power, but it's been over 100 million years since humans last came here," the woman replied. "Which means the 3 people who came before me have all entered that final subsystem world?" Gu Qingshan continued to ask. The woman replied. "Indeed, that is a cultivation-type subsystem world, as well as the last intact subsystem world. It's very suitable for them." She stared closely at Gu Qingshan and continued. "The gate to the cultivation-type subsystem world is still open, and it's still functioning, so you can take advantage of the time before the desolate race invades to enter." Gu Qingshan went silent for a while, then suddenly asked, "Will the invisibility technique you've used on us be able to fool the desolate race's king?" The woman replied, "I can increase your shadow origin power to that effect, but the duration of your invisibility will be halved." "Very well, please increase my origin power then." Chapter 851. The secondary defense system world. Large-scale war warning lights filled the entire world, dyeing the sky crimson. Because the entire world was in a state of war, the alarm never stopped ringing. Although the sound of these alarms was loud and piercing, it was completely drowned out by another kind of minuscule but concentrated gnawing sound. It was the sound of monsters devouring everything in their path. The desolate monsters were constantly pushing forward on the battlefield. 2/3 of the world had already fallen, only the core defense system of the world had yet to be taken down. This was going to be a long and arduous battle. Fortunately, the desolate monsters had plenty of experience with this, occasionally attacking, occasionally defending, calmly and methodically organizing the battle without showing any signs of impatience. The Lord of Desolation and his most powerful subordinates didn't appear on the battlefield. They were all resting in the rear, silently waiting for the decisive battle to begin. They had destroyed 18,800 subsystems, among which there were 647 worlds that had a secondary defense system similar to this one. Because of that, the monsters knew exactly how to win this war while paying the smallest price. All they needed to do was follow the method that they had figured out before, step by step, and they would be able to achieve victory. But they didn't know that above their heads, a single person was silently observing all of this. Gu Qingshan. He had only just arrived in this world while being invisible. A technological world, but it's a bit strange. Gu Qingshan stared at the mechs that were fighting against the monsters and muttered. He was a bit unsure, so he flew down and landed at the center of the battlefield. At this point, several dozen desolate monsters rushed forward, pinning a 5-meter-tall mech to the ground, and began to tear at it. The mech simply continued to send out shockwave attacks, killing the enemy closest to it. Against so many monsters, it couldn't stop them at all and was quickly destroyed. The monsters quickly moved on to the next mech. It was now that Gu Qingshan stepped forward and stood in front of the mech's remains. He carefully observed it for a bit, took out his frost blade, and cut down the damaged part of the mech Sha. Blood flowed. A chunk of the mech's muscles was also cut off. Gu Qingshan sheathed his sword and nodded. He finally understood why he felt strange. This was not an ordinary steel armor. It was a combat weapon made up of living organisms. Its entire body was made up of all kinds of tissues that were compatible with the human body. When it received too much damage, blood would flow out. Gu Qingshan flew up to the sky again and looked around. The entire land was made of steel, but the various buildings that were scattered all over the land were being devoured by a type of flying ant-like miniature primordial monsters. Some of the buildings would launch powerful attacks that would wipe out a large portion of the flying ants in just a few hits. At this time, the flying ants would retreat, allowing powerful desolate monsters like the 6-legged winged serpent to take the lead and destroy the firepower of the buildings. Then, all kinds of mecha would appear and enter the battlefield to fight with the enemy. The desolate monsters would also immediately charge forward. The battle immediately entered the most intense melee phase. After a period of fighting, the desolate monsters who had the advantage in both numbers and combat strength would seize a piece of land and continue to advance. After repeating this a few times, the monsters occupied more and more areas. Gu Qingshan stared blankly at what was happening on the battlefield. You call this a war? He shook his head and looked at the war god UI. Lines of notification appeared on the UI. The War God UI has connected with this world's defense system, discovered the hiding location of this world's defense core. Please head southeast 12,000 kilometers, prepare to take over this world's defense system. Reading through it, Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, You can take over this world's defense system? Ting. The War God UI replied, Not me but you. As a human, you naturally have the authority to take over the defense system. And here I thought you had that much authority, Gu Qingshan replied. The War God UI ignored him. Gu Qingshan carefully calculated the duration of his concealment and was about to head southeast. The war god Yui suddenly spoke up again. Wait, what is it? Gu Qingshan asked. You still have some time to conceal yourself. Please gather some soul points before heading to the defense corps. The war god Yui replied. Gu Qingshan replied. I can't even cut through high-level monsters. Kill the soldiers. The war god Yui replied. Gu Qingshan hesitated for a split second, then said, All right, keep track of my time, call me when it's about time. Got it, the war god Yui replied. Gu Qingshan then flew into the middle of the battlefield and raised the frost blade in his hand. The blade flashed. A desolate soldier was cut in half. A line of glowing text appeared on the war god Yui. You've killed a desolate spiky beast, obtaining 40,000 soul points. The system has collected 39,995 soul points. Your remaining soul points are as follows. With a glance, Gu Qingshan charged towards the next monster with the frost blade in hand. The entire battlefield stretched for several thousand miles, with intense battles taking place everywhere. Furthermore, Gu Qingshan was in a stealthy state, making sure not to cause too much of a commotion and constantly changing his position, so his battles didn't draw the attention of the desolate race. His soul points quickly increased. Soul points plus 1, soul points plus 3, soul points plus 5, soul points plus 9. As Gu Qingshan continued to reap the lives of monsters, he was full of doubts. This was the first time the war god Yui had notified him that he needed to collect soul points. This has never happened before. Could it be that the war god Yui actually took damage from collecting soul points for me? Gu Qingshan squinted his eyes. That can't be right. Back in the underground of Shen Wu world, at the moment of life and death, the war god Yui asked him if he wanted to return to the past to avoid the crisis of life and death. Indeed, the war god Yui can no longer travel through time, but even in that situation, the system never mentioned anything about soul points. Why is the war god Yui asking for soul points now? While thinking, Gu Qingshan's hands didn't stop moving. He swung his blade again to kill a desolate monster in front of him, then moved to another location and continued killing monsters. As he thought deeper, Gu Qingshan's killing speed became faster and faster. Since the system needed soul points, regardless of whether it was to heal itself or for something else, Gu Qingshan was determined to help. After all, the system had never mistreated him before. The frost blade was like a snowflake, flickering in and out of sight on the battlefield, slicing every monster it passed into pieces. None of the monsters could see Gu Qingshan. At this moment, he was the invisible god of death. After an unknown amount of time, a clear chime resounded. Ting! The war god Yui replied. That's enough, you must use the remaining time to head to the core of this world's defense. Gu Qingshan stopped. He glanced at the war god Yui and checked his current soul point. Your remaining soul points is quite a good harvest for him. As for the war god Yui, the amount of soul points it received was even more astronomical, at least a few dozen million. This amount of soul points was more than enough for him to do anything. Even if he was injured from collecting soul points, he should be able to quickly recover from such a large amount of soul points. Gu Qingshan tried asking, System, if there's another chance to become invisible in the future, would we still need to kill them like this? Of course, I need more soul points. The war god Yui replied. Gu Qingshan paused briefly. Alright, I hope there'll be a chance to collect more soul points later on. Chapter 852. The intense sounds of battle were left behind by Gu Qingshan. No monster would be able to discover him. He flew past the battlefield, where the flames of war were flying everywhere, without stopping. Before he knew it, his surroundings had become silent. A tall mountain made entirely out of steel stood at the end of the world. This was the center of the secondary defense system, as well as the core of this world. Around the lone steel peak were densely packed large war machines, as well as countless biological mechas. They were protecting this mountain of steel. When Gu Qingshan appeared, all of these war machines remained silent and didn't attack at all. Gu Qingshan flew up to the mountain of steel and stood on top of it. At this point, his stealth time had finally ended. Gu Qingshan reappeared and looked towards the distance with a regretful expression. From here, he could see the flames of war raging on the horizon. It wasn't too far away. As long as the desolate race spent a bit more effort, it would only be a matter of time before they completely destroyed this world. Gu Qingshan shook his head and asked, "Is this place the core of this world?" "Correct," the war god system replied. As soon as it said so, the ground beneath Gu Qingshan's feet began to split apart. Numerous miniature machines flew out and slowly assembled themselves in front of Gu Qingshan to form two transparent screens. The two screens circled around Gu Qingshan once before stopping at the same time. A gentle female voice resounded. "Identity confirmed. Begin transfer of command authority." Recognizing the other party's voice, Gu Qingshan was surprised. "Why are you here as well?" Indeed, this was the girl who helped him to become invisible and brought him here. The girl replied, "This is my subsystem, so of course I can fight alongside you." Gu Qingshan asked, "What do we do now?" The girl replied, "You will be responsible for commanding this defensive battle, while I will extract your combat essence and give it to various war machines." She smiled at Gu Qingshan and asked, "I still don't know your name, Gu Qingshan. What about you?" Gu Qingshan asked. The woman replied, "I am the soul of the large-scale war system. You can call me Water God." "Water God? Are you a god?" Gu Qingshan asked. "The Water God is my incarnation. I once infiltrated the divine spirit race in an attempt to help the human race, but I only have the world's origin power, so I have never been able to synthesize the energy. As such, I can only barely maintain the human race's inheritance and not do anything else," the woman said. As he spoke, a light screen gradually shrank into a ball of light the size of a fingernail and disappeared into Gu Qingshan's body. Almost instantaneously, a long list of notifications appeared on the other screen. "The human race's combat system has been activated. Commander confirmed. Her Excellency Gu Qingshan." Extracting Gu Qingshan's personal combat skills. Discovered a total of 79 ice elemental spells, minus the 16 non-combat spells. Remaining spells that can be manifested. 63. Gu Qingshan watched as one ice spell after another appeared on the screen. They were all Zhao Wuzong's combat skills. He pondered for a bit and asked, "You can use my combat skills?" Water God's voice came from the screen. "Indeed, I will manifest your combat skills using origin power and grant them to all the biomechs. Each biomech will have one of your skills. This way, their combat prowess will increase by several times." "That impressive?" Gu Qingshan asked with interest. "The first batch of biomechs that have your combat skills have been prepared. Please issue the order," Water God replied. "Go," Gu Qingshan ordered. "Understood," Water God replied. The scene of the front line was displayed on the screen. The ground began to split apart as brand new biomechs rose up from the ground. The biomech at the very front moved. It leapt up, flew diagonally into the battlefield, and struck the ground with both fists. Bam! With a heavy sound, the ground trembled. The monsters around it all stopped. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was, layers of white frost manifested on the biomecha's fists, quickly spreading in every direction. Everything within a radius of 300 meters was frozen solid. The frost crawled over the desolate monsters' bodies, causing their movements to slow down. Ice magic, frozen earth. Gu Qingshan's heart jumped. This was Zhao Wuzong's ice magic. When Gu Qingshan was reading through Zhao Wuzong's personal scripture Jade Tag, she saw this technique before. Following that, the second biomech also entered the battlefield. It charged towards the frozen desolate monsters and abruptly turned into a gust of frigid wind. The frigid wind passed through the bodies of 7 to 8 monsters and reformed into a mech several dozen meters away. Those desolate monsters were completely turned into ice statues, then smashed to pieces by the fists of the mechs that came after them. Frost could slow down the movement of monsters as well as kill them. It was a spirit ability that was extremely suitable for large-scale warfare. And now, each biomech was bestowed with Zhao Wuzong's ice magic. The monsters couldn't get used to this change. The situation on the battlefield began to change. At this point, Water God continued. Your Excellency Gu Qingshan, please direct the battle. Countless metal tendrils reached out from the mountain. They crawled up Gu Qingshan's body and completely covered his back. All of a sudden, Gu Qingshan felt like he could sense every single mech, every single attacking structure. As long as he gave the order, any force on his side would obey his command. But Gu Qingshan didn't give any orders at all. As he watched the scenes of the battle on the screen, he felt like his horizons had been greatly broadened. Extracting a person's abilities and giving them to the various mechs, is this the crystallization of the bygone-era humanity's civilization? He chuckled. There's no need to direct this. After 10 breaths worth of time, double the number of troops will be enough. Furthermore, when the high-level desolate monsters appear, I'll come up with a countermeasure based on the current situation. Understood, the female voice replied. Gu Qingshan continued to watch the battle progress. On the screen, the desolate monsters were being pushed back bit by bit. As more than twice the number of ice mechs were added to the battle, the course of the battle was slowly changing. A thought suddenly popped up in Gu Qingshan's mind. And this was only Zhao Wuzong's power that was extracted and given to the mech. If this large-scale war machine can extract the God of Frost and Chill's divine skills, while Gu Qingshan was thinking, he noticed lines of glowing text scrolling past his vision. As the decisive factor of this battle comes from your body, you are indirectly participating in this battle. You will obtain a certain amount of soul points from the dead monsters. Soul points plus 7 soul points plus 11 soul points plus 8 soul points plus 3. Gu Qingshan was surprised. Obtaining soul points is always a good thing. But according to how I'm obtaining soul points, I can easily infer that the system is currently obtaining a large amount of soul points. Gu Qingshan took a deep breath and called out, War God System, Ting? The system responded, Gu Qingshan, you must prepare yourself. The Lord of Desolation has noticed the change in the situation of the battle. The War God System continued. War System, Water God, according to my judgment, the situation of the battle is about to change. You must immediately evolve into an order, the woman called Water God replied. Humanity has disappeared for countless years. I have accumulated enough origin power, but without the soul points of humanity, I cannot synthesize. Elemental energy and elemental energy, the War God System replied. I will give you enough soul points, you must evolve as quickly as possible, Water God replied. As long as I have enough soul points, I will evolve right away. On the screen, a card appeared in front of Gu Qingshan. It was the card where Water God was. It was now that the War God Ui spoke up. Gu Qingshan, I've sensed danger. You need to place your hand on the card right now. I will give the card a large amount of soul points to help her convert into an order. Gu Qingshan placed her hand on the card without hesitation and asked, What are the benefits of transforming into an order? The War God System replied, At least she won't die, she can use everything she has to help us fight. You've been collecting soul points all this time just for this moment? Gu Qingshan asked. No, I only hope that my preparations were unnecessary, the War God System replied. As Gu Qingshan was about to ask further, she suddenly felt a large amount of soul points surging through her body. A phenomenon manifested. Due to the appearance of this massive amount of soul points, intense wind began to blow around the mountain of steel. The wind turned into hundreds of tornadoes that rampaged across the surface of the earth. Who knows how much soul points the War God System had given her? Gu Qingshan saw lines of notifications appearing on both her retina and the floating screen in front of her. For the first time in over 100 million years, the soul points of all living beings have been replenished, world origin power has been prepared, beginning fusion elemental energy has been generated, energy is rising, evolution begins. Right at this moment, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the distant battlefield. You detestable war machines, die! A seven-colored light shot up to the sky. The Lord of Desolation had appeared. At the same time, the card in front of Gu Qingshan began to shatter. The woman on the card, Water God, smiled at Gu Qingshan and muttered, "I've waited for over 100 million years for this moment of evolution." She suddenly disappeared. A blood-red notification appeared in front of Gu Qingshan's eyes on the War God UI. Chapter 853. Far below the sky. At the end of the horizon, the sharp glint of the seven-colored spear occasionally pierced through the sky. Various biological armors, defensive firepower, metal structures, and so on couldn't resist the seven-colored spear at all. The Lord of Desolation's voice resounded. "Everything of humanity shall return to dust because of me." Its voice was dignified and resounded across the entire world. Over 10,000 miles away, on top of a metal mountain, Gu Qingshan also heard the Lord of Desolation's declaration. He stood there quietly and did not move. At this point, both the screen and the information on his retina had disappeared, temporarily falling silent. World's Apocalypse Online. Human Legion is currently in a state of preparation, will be fully activated in a few minutes. Taking this time, Gu Qingshan asked, "System, we're currently in a phantom image. Even if we awaken an order, it won't affect reality at all. Why are you doing this?" Ting! A clear chime resounded. The War God system replied. "Phantom images are a fragment of a parallel world. Everything that happened in the past will be replayed here. These things indeed can't affect reality's past, present, or future. So why do you think I'm doing this?" Being asked a question in return, Gu Qingshan froze. While thinking, he replied, "You're spending so much soul points to do something that can't affect reality in a phantom image." Pausing briefly, Gu Qingshan slowly continued, "Unless you have a way to take the order away?" The War God system replied, "That is one of the reasons, but not the most important one." Gu Qingshan was speechless. Catalyzing an order and taking it away, such a feat isn't even the most important reason why the system acted. What exactly is the War God system trying to do? Gu Qingshan maintained her calm, stayed silent for a few moments, then muttered, "Everything that happened in history will be replayed in this parallel world fragment. Could it be that you're trying to find some sort of secret hidden within this historical moment?" "That's correct. This secret is related to the survival of humanity, as well as everything," the War God system replied. "What kind of secret is it?" Gu Qingshan asked. The War God system replied, "It's hard to say right now. We need to wait patiently and see if that thing will actually happen." Gu Qingshan nodded silently. From the system's words, he felt a certain heaviness. The transparent light screen floating in front of Gu Qingshan suddenly lit up. Lines of prompts appeared rapidly. World's Apocalypse Online. Human Legion is about to be activated. Countdown begins. 10 and 9 8 7. Gu Qingshan looked up at the distant horizon. The seven-colored light was slowly advancing in his direction. In order to prevent any more accidents from happening, the Lord of Desolation was personally leading the army to sweep away all resistance. The biological armors imbued with Zhao Wuzong's ice magic weren't a match for the Lord of Desolation and the high-level monsters around him. The battle line was routed again and again. Right at this moment, Gu Qingshan's retina and hologram simultaneously began to flash crazily. "The army has arrived. Begin to consolidate this world's resources for the Order's initial selection." A selection complete. combining this world's resources and energy, initial direction determined to be technological. Thus, the other armies will enter a state of rest, technological core will enter a state of war. Due to the severity of the situation, personal growth mode has been skipped, summoning mode has been forcibly initiated. Conducting the First Legion summoning, gathering all of this world's resources, technology, and energy to summon only the primary profession. Legion Soldier, War Commander Gu Qingshan, would you like to begin the summoning now? Gu Qingshan read through everything and immediately replied. Summon Legion Soldier. Following his order, several dozen metal blocks of different colors appeared on the hologram. The order has just been born, currently lacking power, can only be used for random summoning. Summoning count. 2. Begin summoning. The 2 glowing dots jumped around on the dozens of metal blocks before stopping on 2 of them. One was a silver metal block. The other was a black metal block. Summoning complete. A few moments later, Gu Qingshan felt his hand becoming heavier. 2 cold metal blocks appeared in his hand out of nowhere. One was silver, the other was black. They were the 2 metal blocks he obtained from summoning. How do I use them? Gu Qingshan asked. A new line of text appeared on the screen. The activation method, command, war begins. A new line of text appeared on the hologram. The activation method, begin battle. As soon as he said so, the 2 metal blocks began to expand. Gu Qingshan quickly placed them on the ground. The 2 metal blocks slowly formed into humanoid figures with the shape of humans. They saluted to Gu Qingshan, then spoke in an electronic voice. Frowny face, biochemical engineering type 1 soldier, reporting to the commander. Sniper type 1 soldier, reporting to the commander. Gu Qingshan ordered. Begin battle. Yes, the 2 metallic humanoids looked at the end of the horizon. The Lord of Desolation was leading his army on a killing spree. The silver metal soldier observed for a while, then drew a 2-meter-long mechanical spear from its body. The soldier raised the spear, propped it on its shoulder, made an aiming gesture towards the horizon, then stopped moving. A breath's worth of time later, its body became faint, as if it had entered another world. As Gu Qingshan observed this, she suddenly noticed that she couldn't sense the other party's existence at all. Even inner sight couldn't detect it. This was similar to the shadow origin power that Water God gave me. At the same time, the black metal soldier told Gu Qingshan, Sir, I request your permission to use this world's resources to conduct biochemical engineering. Gu Qingshan replied. Approved, permission received. The black metal soldier bowed to Gu Qingshan, then crouched down. Its entire arm turned into a liquid metal tentacle that went into the mountain of steel. 1 breath, 2 breath, 3 breath. A red glow suddenly appeared on the black metal soldier's body. At the same time, the entire steel ground began to tremble. Gu Qingshan looked down, only to see that other than the steel mountain she was standing on, the entire steel ground was quickly collapsing. This was an unprecedentedly intense earthquake. Wait! Gu Qingshan released her inner sight to carefully observe, only to see that the collapsed steel ground had all turned into thumb-sized metal insects. These insects' backs and heads were covered in a thick layer of steel armor, while their exposed mouths were filled with sharp teeth. It turns out that the entire steel ground wasn't collapsing, but had instead turned into these metal insects. On top of the mountain, the black metal soldier suddenly issued an order. Frowny face metal biochemical insects, enter the battlefield. Ong. A loud, resounding noise filled the entire world, causing even the void of space itself to tremble. The entire ground had turned into a sea of insects. And at this moment, the sea of insects began to move. The endless metal biochemical insects flew into the sky, sweeping towards the front lines with unstoppable momentum. This was an unprecedentedly shocking scene. On the screen in front of Gu Qingshan, the frontline situation was being displayed. A 6-legged winged snake flew into the sky and was the first to enter the fray. It let out a low screech towards the swarm of insects. In front of it, the swarm froze. Something seemed to have struck the metal insects from the void of space. In the blink of an eye, the metal insects seemed to have been angered. They attacked at once, enveloping the six-legged winged snake. The six-legged winged snake didn't even have time to cry out before it was devoured. As if it was lightly brushed by a giant metal hand, it disappeared from the sky in the blink of an eye. The hundreds of metal insects that had eaten the six-legged winged snake's flesh froze in the air. The other metal insects continued to attack the enemy's rank. In just a single breath's worth of time, the hundreds of metal insects that had stopped in the air changed. They absorbed the six-legged winged snake's flesh and began to mutate at a genetic level, slowly turning into the six-legged winged snake. Unlike the six-legged winged snake, their bodies were still only the size of a thumb. But the steel armor on their bodies was brighter and tougher. These mutated insects moved even faster, quickly catching up to the swarm. The sea of insects descended from the sky, heading straight for the front lines. A massacre had begun. The majority of the desolate monsters couldn't escape from the metal insects devouring and were directly erased by them, turning into their mutated DNA samples. The high-level desolate monsters kept unleashing powerful attacks, killing the insects that were surrounding them. There were too many of them. This was a swarm of metal insects created from the entire world's resources. It was impossible to kill them all in a short amount of time. Although the desolate monsters' attacks were powerful enough to destroy a large chunk of the world at any given time. But the swarm of insects seemed to have a unique defensive method that was able to greatly weaken the monsters' attack. "Come to me!" The Lord of Desolation raised his seven-colored spear. The spear gave off countless streaks of sharp seven-colored light that cut down the swarm of insects one by one. None of the metal insects were able to get close to the Lord of Desolation. As time passed, the Lord of Desolation began to kill more and more of the metal insects. The Lord of Desolation angrily shouted, "Despicable insects, you dare to eat my army, all of you!" Time stopped at this moment. Bam! Chapter 854. As soon as the gunshot rang out, Gu Qingshan abruptly turned around, only to see that the silver metal soldier had just manifested from nothingness. It pulled the trigger. A blinding flash of light appeared in the void of space. 10,000 miles away. The Lord of Desolation's head suddenly disappeared without a trace, leaving only its lonely body. Thud! Its gigantic body heavily fell to the ground. The seven-colored spear that went on a rampage also fell to the ground. All the desolate monsters froze. Their king died just like that, so they didn't know what to do. But the metal insects didn't care about that. They just wanted to devour the Lord of Desolation's body. All of a sudden, the seven-colored spear leapt up from the ground and hovered in the air. Countless dazzling spear phantoms shot out from the seven-colored spear in every direction. Be it the desolate monsters or the mutating metal insects, none of them were able to resist the spear's attack. The seven-colored spear began to attack without differentiating between friend and foe. It was even more powerful than when the Lord of Desolation was wielding it. An inconceivable thing happened. All of a sudden, the Lord of Desolation's corpse stood up from the ground. Even though it had lost its head, the corpse could still move. The headless corpse stood up and walked towards the hovering seven-colored spear. 10,000 miles away. Gu Qingshan's eyebrows twitched. Watching this eerie scene, Gu Qingshan felt an indescribable sensation. A frigid, suffocating chill suddenly descended on his body, causing him to tense up. Gu Qingshan felt like he was standing at the border of life and death, about to fall into the endless abyss of despair at any moment. No, this was a danger that was even more terrifying than death itself. This feeling was so familiar that Gu Qingshan immediately recalled something that happened before. The monster that almost appeared in the Huangquan realm. The monster that won against the entire Spire society. It was an invincible existence. On the screen, the headless corpse was walking towards the seven-colored spear, reaching its hand out to grab it. This isn't right. Gu Qingshan's pupils shrunk. She didn't even have time to think and shouted, "Don't let it hold that spear." "Understood," the black metal soldier said. Boom. On the battlefield, all the metal insects swarmed forward like a tidal wave to stop the Lord of Desolation. This wasn't the Lord of Desolation, but its headless corpse. The metal insects attacked with all their strength, gnawing at the corpse, but the corpse was perfectly fine, not suffering any damage at all. The headless corpse was battered by the endless swarm of insects, but it managed to stand firm and approach the seven-colored spear step by step. It was about to grasp the spear. "Snipe," Gu Qingshan ordered. Bang! The muffled sound of a sniper rifle rang in his ears. A fist-sized hole appeared on the Lord of Desolation's body. As the gunshots rang out one after another, the Lord of Desolation's body finally froze in place, unable to approach the seven-colored spear. Gu Qingshan let out a sigh of relief. However, the situation changed abruptly. The seven-colored spear that was hovering in the air suddenly trembled and automatically flew into the headless corpse's hand. The headless corpse held the seven-colored spear high up. Together with the spear, it gave off a sky-piercing waterfall of light. The boundless swarm of steel insects let out violent wails and retreated in all directions, not daring to approach that blazing radiance at all. Some sort of indescribable change was occurring. "System, tell me, what exactly is this thing?" Gu Qingshan loudly asked. But the war god system remained silent and didn't answer. It seemed to be silently observing her. Time quickly and slowly passed. All of a sudden, the sky-piercing waterfall of light disappeared. A malicious female voice resounded from the Lord of Desolation's corpse at the center of the battlefield. "Soul food watched over by the old gods, you are wonderful existences that should never have any connection with the detestable order." Following that, a male voice resounded from the Lord of Desolation's corpse. "Humans, you pitiful insects should not be obsessed with life. You are only vessels for souls." Boom. A chilling and intense chill began to spread from the headless corpse. Both the male and female voices chanted at the same time, "Souls! Offer your souls to me, Arg!" With a shrill scream, a large number of metal insects fell to the ground like a storm. Faint, sporadic sprites of light appeared from the metal insects' bodies and flew towards the headless corpse. "And you!" The male and female voices resounded at the same time. The desolate monsters fell to the ground one after another. Their souls came out from their bodies and flew towards the headless corpse. On both sides of the war, both humanity and the desolate race began to die in large numbers. The screams of countless souls resounded across the battlefield. This was a sharp, agonizing, and painful invisible sound that made anyone who heard it feel the endless pain they were experiencing. Seeing this, Gu Qingshan finally understood. This wasn't the so-called Lord of Desolation. It turns out that the eerie God of God Institute had already appeared in the age of old. It impersonated the Lord of Desolation. Or rather, it hid inside the Lord of Desolation's body, controlling the Lord of Desolation to control both humanity and the divinities. Ting, the war god system's voice suddenly resounded. "The worst-case scenario has still happened, Gu Qingshan, run." It spoke very quickly. "Water god, you must transform back. Return to your war system state and turn into a card for me to take away, otherwise you will definitely die here." "Understood," Water god's voice resounded. "Where are we going?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Leave this place as soon as possible and return to the strife zones," the war god system replied. Gu Qingshan immediately said, "No, Water God, send us to another subsystem world. You're crazy. This distance is too close, it could catch up to you at any moment, you'll die in its hands and never be able to start again," the war god system replied. "We have to go take a look," Gu Qingshan quickly spoke. I bet that Siegu Hong's group will still be safe and sound, because Siegu Hong's group isn't a match for this monster, but according to history, Siegu Hong still managed to return unscathed," he abruptly shouted. "Do you understand? This means that something must have happened to them, something that we don't know about, and it must be related to the Heaven Sword." The warrior system replied. "But, Gu Qing Shan cut it off. Trust me, I guarantee that I won't die in that world." "Very well, Water God, leave these 2 soldiers here to stall for time, we're going to the cultivation-type world first," the system replied. Water God replied. "Understood, let's go." She turned into a card and landed in Gu Qing Shan's hand. Layers of light descended and enveloped Gu Qing Shan. Gu Qing Shan turned into a streak of light and disappeared from this subsystem world. On top of the metal mountain, the 2 soldiers were still attacking with everything they had. They were responsible for stalling this monster to buy as much time as possible for Gu Qing Shan. Chapter 855. After Gu Qing Shan left the secondary defense system world, the Lord of Desolation's headless corpse wielded the 7-colored spear in its hand, heading towards the lone mountain. Wherever it went, the swarm of metal insects, as well as the powerful desolate monsters, all fell to the ground as their souls left their bodies. Countless souls flew into the Lord of Desolation's headless corpse, slowly replenishing it with some sort of power. At a certain point, the headless corpse abruptly stopped. Countless souls gathered at the corpse's neck, manifesting into a blinding light. The light rapidly changed and quickly turned into an eerie purple color. A few moments later, a human face slowly became visible within the purple light. Half male, half female. It stared at the lone mountain from afar, displaying a certain emotion that humans didn't have. The male and female voices resounded at the same time, speaking in a tone of anger, hatred, pain, and coldness. "The army of order. Unfortunately, there are only 2 beginner soldiers. Did you come here to die?" On the lone mountain, the 2 metal soldiers stopped moving. "Enemy detected. Eternal true deity, the biochemical engineering type," one soldier uttered a cold voice. Its entire black metal body slowly sank into the lone mountain and disappeared without a trace. Very quickly, a loud roar resounded from deep within metal earth. All the metal insects in the world stopped at once. They screeched as they flew high up in the sky, tearing and devouring each other. On top of the lone mountain, the sniper type 1 soldier also uttered a cold voice. "Frowny face, sir, an eternal true deity. Soul Shrieker has appeared on the battlefield. Initial assessment is that it is not the main body, confirmed to be a miniature avatar. This campaign isn't in the Samsara world, the chances of victory are 0, change battle strategy." Its silver metal arm quickly melted into the sniper rifle. The 2-meter-long rifle's shape slowly changed. Its entire body turned silver, the structure of the rifle's butt and body became more complex. The long and thin barrel became as thick as a bowl, the endless blue light inside the barrel flickered on and off. Annihilation bullet ready. Right at this moment, an endless amount of flesh and blood rained down from the sky. All the metal insects were dead, only a single one remained. This steel beetle absorbed all the mutant genes of the other steel beetles, and its body gradually turned into a giant steel beetle that was dozens of meters long. Its entire body was made of metal, and there was no sign of flesh or blood. Its compound eyes flickered with wandering electronic light. The gigantic metal insect spread its 12 thin metal wings and circled in the sky. Suddenly, the cry of an insect came from the ground. It seemed to be some sort of order. When the giant metal insect heard this cry, it immediately pounced towards the 2-faced monster below. At the same time, a beam of light more dazzling than the sun burst out from the peak. At this critical moment, the sniper took action. Boom! The monster was blasted into the air by the spear before it was caught by the giant metal insect. A few long legs suddenly grew out of the giant metal insect's body, grabbing onto the monster and spinning it around. Layers of white threads began to wrap around the monster. "You're seeking death. You can't beat me at all." The monster roared furiously. It fiercely swung its rainbow spear. On the other side, in the tunnel made of pure light, Gu Qingshan was pushed forward by a force. He silently asked in his mind, "System, do you know who that monster is?" The war god system replied, "Through the information I received from the divine race's warehouse, I've found out that the monster is an eternal true deity from the bygone era." The soul shrieker Gu Qingshan scowled. "Why is it a deity again? It's completely different. Those personal combat soul artifacts that have passed their expiration date are nothing more than impersonations that take advantage of humanity's natural fear of deities. The soul shrieker isn't an impersonation of the divine race, but a terrifying deity that lives outside of the winds of chaotic tribulation," the war god system replied. Gu Qingshan recalled the monster's method of killing. It was indeed to absorb the souls of living beings through a shrill cry. "This name is very accurate, but such an eternal monster can also be called a deity?" Gu Qingshan asked in confusion. The war god system replied, "Indeed, the soul shrieker has the divinity of an eternal existence." For some reason, Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled the dark figure of light. "This conversation seems to have happened before. The second time I traveled through time, I was eaten by a monster from the fog of spacetime. When I returned to the seal, I immediately asked the same question. The monster from the fog of spacetime can also be considered your deity. A certain kind of deity, it ate you," the dark figure of light explained. "Does that count as a deity?" I asked. The dark figure of light replied, "Living beings have always worshipped things that they can't understand. That has always been the case. Now that I think about it, the dark figure of light seems to have also been born within the eternal, so the divine race feared it and sealed it away." Gu Qingshan's expression slowly turned serious. "What is divinity?" he suddenly asked. The war god system replied, "A unique characteristic that humans can't explain, can't understand, and can't do anything about," Gu Qingshan asked. "In other words, humanity can't deal with it at all?" The war god system replied, "That's not the case either. The bygone era humans would have driven it back to the eternal abyss outside of the chaotic tribulation," it calmly explained. In the bygone era, humanity referred to this type of incomprehensible and incomparably powerful eternal entity as deities. Gu Qingshan continued. "Among the two types of primary-level soldiers that I just summoned, although the sniper's attacks couldn't heavily injure the soul shrieker, they could effectively restrict its movements." He thought for a bit, then mused. If the soul shrieker's strength was only at this level, then the bygone-era humans wouldn't have feared it at all, the war god system replied. "You're wrong, the soul shrieker isn't here. Its main body is located outside of this world, deep within the winds of chaotic tribulation, within a certain eternal abyss that humans can't reach. That is an extremely deep and unknown location outside of this world. The entity we saw just now was only a miniature avatar of the soul shrieker, not even 1,000th of its main body's power." Hearing this unbelievable explanation, Gu Qingshan felt even more solemn. He asked, "Did the information you obtained from the divine race's warehouse record the war between the bygone-era humans and the soul shrieker? What was the result?" The war god system replied, "As I said just now, defend and repel. Humanity has the ability to repel this true deity back." Gu Qingshan asked, "Repel? Would that be useful?" "It can at least last for a while. If this eternal true deity wants to return, he will need to spend more effort to endure the winds of chaotic tribulation and climb out of the eternal abyss," the war god system explained. Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled the boundless wall she saw before. It was the sturdiest of walls. It was built from the rocks of the Grand Tai Wei mountain of Huangquan. Even the seven-colored spear couldn't damage such a wall. At this point, Gu Qingshan suddenly understood why the bygone-era humans had to build such a wall. The war god system suddenly asked. Gu Qing Shan, now let me ask you, why do you insist on finding Xie Gu Hong? It's hard to say right now, you must tell me, I need to make the necessary preparations right now. Gu Qing Shan fell silent briefly. Obviously, even the system was feeling anxious. In other words, both I and the system are facing a true crisis of life and death. Gu Qing Shan sighed and replied, with how powerful the Soul Shrieker is, it should be able to control everything, even the divinities secretly creating the samsara. Then, isn't it strange that Xie Gu Hong was able to take the method to forge the twin swords heaven and earth right in front of its eyes? The war god system fell silent. Gu Qing Shan continued, this is something that doesn't make sense, so we need to see the truth with our own eyes. Otherwise, no matter where we go in the future, we will be kept in the dark due to missing this crucial piece of information and fall into an irrecoverable state, the war god system replied. Understood, you've decided to witness the process of Xie Gu Hong obtaining the method to forge the twin swords heaven and earth. That's right. Wait a minute, why don't I see water deity? Gu Qing Shan asked again. Her degeneration is actually a type of injury, so she has fallen into slumber. Only after we return to the real world would we be able to think of a way to wake her up, the war god system replied. Gu Qing Shan sighed. A gate suddenly appeared in front of this tunnel of time. Gu Qing Shan flew through the gate. He appeared in a boundless world of pure white. There was nothing in this world, only a single arena. At the same time, a voice resounded across heaven and earth. Frowny face, welcome to the cultivation-type treasure vault world. Many cultivation scriptures and weapons from the bygone era are stored here. Chapter 856. Hearing this voice's explanation, Gu Qing Shan immediately recalled the sleeping water god. She's no longer able to control this world, so it activated this defensive measure? Gu Qing Shan couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache. He asked, what if I'm not human? You only need to prove your identity as a human to enter. Can desolate monsters and divinities enter? You only need to prove your identity as a human to enter. All right then, Gu Qing Shan stepped onto the ring and stood still. An invisible ripple swept through his body. Welcome, water spirit of ice cultivator, your identity as a human has been verified. We can now answer your question. If you are not human, you will be ejected by the law of space, unable to enter this system world. Please enter this world. Ho! A strong pulling force came over. Gu Qing Shan felt himself being pulled into the void of space. The wind howled. The world was vast and desolate. Spirit energy filled the air. All kinds of wild beasts lived happily in the mountains. There were no signs of life on the vast land. The only thing he could see at the end of his vision was a grand Taoist temple that connected heaven and earth. Gu Qing Shan hovered in the air, looking down at the Taoist temple. A faint white barrier of light blocked his path, preventing him from entering this world for now. The voice came again. Please proceed to the Taoist temple and search for the bygone era's cultivation scriptures and weapons. Gu Qing Shan smiled bitterly. Xie Gu Hong once recorded his entire life's worth of swordsmanship into a large jade tag and gave it to me. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time to cultivate recently. If I can't even grasp such a sword technique, how am I supposed to cultivate the bygone era's scriptures? However, if everything goes smoothly, I can take some of the scriptures and weapons with me and slowly study them later. He suddenly sensed something and looked down at the mountain range. A cultivator was standing there. The burly man who came with Xie Gu Hong. He was shirtless with a long staff in his hand, seemingly waiting for something. The barrier of light slowly faded away. Gu Qing Shan appeared. The burly man immediately noticed Gu Qing Shan. Sect Master Zhao, the burly man clasped his fist. As Gu Qing Shan recalled this person's name, he also clasped his fist. Fellow Dao Seeker Lin, what are you doing here? The burly man replied with an apologetic expression. I'm waiting for you, waiting for me? Yes, after you entered that world, I received a message. Master said that if you appeared here, I would stop you and kill you. Yes, Master. The burly man raised his staff and rested it on his shoulder, saying, Qing Shan is to kill you, Master. The burly man lifted the long rod and rested it on his shoulder. Humans are insignificant and lowly. It's not difficult to kill them. Gu Qing Shan replied, Human, you're also a human, how can you say that? He didn't want to waste any more time. He brandished the frost saber in his hand and unleashed dozens of cold saber auras. The burly man threw his staff away and smirked. Sect Master Zhao, you don't know the wonders of eternity, I'm going to show you right now. A dark purple glow erupted from the burly man's body, forming a closed circle of light. The burly man opened his arms wide, allowing the frost-white blade phantoms to strike his body. In just a few moments, his entire body was sliced into a mist of blood. Gu Qing Shan appeared surprised. He didn't resist at all? He immediately put the frost blade away. But the mist of blood didn't scatter at all, it simply moved in the air for a bit before turning back into the burly man. He appeared in front of Gu Qing Shan, completely unharmed. What exactly are you? Gu Qing Shan scowled and asked. The burly man crossed his arms and casually smiled. I'm the same as you, a human with flesh and blood, but I carry the power of eternity. Sect Master Zhao, your entire sect was destroyed. I see that you're quite pitiful. How about you join us? You'll also obtain an undying body. Gu Qing Shan was shocked. As soon as the purple glow appeared on the burly man's body, he understood a bit. This burly man named Lin had joined the terrifying true deity of the eternal abyss, the Soul Shrieker. He had seen this purple glow the last time Gu Qing Shan brought Bali and Miao back to his homeworld. Those people from God Institute. They killed the guardians of the Nine Lords. Fortunately, Bali and Miao came to his homeworld as guests at the same time, so they just happened to run into each other. Miao easily took control of them. But this purple glow also appeared on their bodies. According to Miao, after these people were killed, their souls wouldn't be destroyed, they would return to a certain place to change their bodies and revive. But this burly man in front of me seems to be even more powerful than those people, being able to instantly revive after death. If that's the case, if I can't kill him, I'll be stuck here forever. If I use the power of a deity, the world might notice and expel me. That's troublesome. Sect Master Zhao, you can't win against me, how about you listen to the benefits we can give you before making your decision? The burly man crossed his arms and said. Gu Qing Shan shouted in disbelief. What undying body, I don't believe it! I didn't even use my full strength just now. He swung the frost blade, unleashing layers upon layers of powerful chilling frost blade phantoms. The burly man shook his head. Any attack is useless. Very well, I'll let you see it with your own eyes again. He didn't try to block at all and simply walked towards the chilling frost blade phantoms. This was a full-powered attack from a Void Revolution Realm Ice Mage, and the burly man didn't even try to block it. He was directly slashed into a mass of blood mist. Now, Gu Qing Shan's expression calmed down as countless sword images appeared in his eyes, one after another. Title skill, True Soul Severing Eyes. In an instant, the mass of blood mist disappeared from this world. The True Soul Severing Eyes was able to create a temporary world out of thin air, sending the mass of blood mist into that world to face Gu Qing Shan's full-powered attack. At the same time, Gu Qing Shan immediately used her divine skill, Ground Shrink. Ground Shrink was able to directly reach any place that his inner sight could cover. As a Void Revolution Realm cultivator, his inner sight had already covered half of this world. Almost as soon as the mass of blood mist disappeared, his entire body disappeared. Time quickly passed. The mass of blood mist reappeared, slowly spread, and turned back into the burly man. He appeared a bit surprised, then praised. I didn't think Sect Master Zhao still had such a rare eye technique thaumaturgy, capable of creating a world of its own. Unfortunately, it still couldn't kill me, Zhao Wuzong sighed. So you really are undying, the burly man asked. Sect Master Zhao, do you still want to fight? Zhao Wuzong fell silent. He sent his voice over 1,000 miles away. Gongzi, what should I do? Gu Qingshan replied. Since he's stalling for time, there's no need for you to fight, just talk to him and see if you can get more information. Gongzi, I don't really know how to talk to strangers. That's not a problem, you already know everything I know, just use my acting skills. I understand. What about you, Gongzi? Zhao Wuzong asked. I'm going to that Taoist temple to investigate and see what exactly happened to Xie Gu Hong, Gu Qingshan replied. Understood, Gongzi. Hearing Gu Qingshan's words, Shanu turned to the burly man and asked with a hesitant expression, What exactly do I need to do to obtain that power you have? The burly man was a bit surprised, then joyfully asked, Sect Master Zhao, have you thought it through? Wait a minute, I don't even know what's going on with you. Zhao Wuzong appeared a bit hesitant. The burly man happily said, Wait a moment, I'll ask the great true God to see if he's willing to accept you as his devout believer. He formed a hand seal and chanted. Zhao Wuzong silently stood there and didn't make any attacks. A few moments later, the burly man's eyebrows twitched. Stalling for time is something I've already done. But the situation seems to be a bit different from what I thought. This Zhao guy seems a bit nervous, but his eyes were filled with passion and eagerness. Could it be that he's actually been moved? Zhao Wuzong's position in the cultivation world is very high, and he was highly regarded by the true God just now, who ordered me to stop him. If such a person were to join the true God, wouldn't that be a great merit? If that's the case, the burly man swept away all the distracting thoughts in his mind and entered a true meditative state to search for the will of the eternal God. A few moments later, the burly man smiled. Congratulations, you've received the favor of that true God, Zhao Wuzong asked. True God? Could it be that the divinities are also here? No, you don't know this, but the ones who took over the sky beyond heaven aren't actually divinities, the burly man replied. Ah? What's going on? Let me explain slowly. Wait. Zhao Wuzong said. What is it? Are you going back on your word? The burly man's expression turned grim. That's not it. Zhao Wuzong took out a formation plate and arranged a quarantine formation around the two of them. With this formation, no cultivators outside would be able to hear what's happening inside. Of course, the cultivators inside the formation wouldn't be able to release their inner sight either. Zhao Wuzong spoke with a serious expression. If this is a secret, we need to be careful, we can't let any other entity hear it. The burly man silently sensed the activation of the quarantine formation and chuckled. Sect Master Zhao, you're being too cautious. At another location, several thousand miles away, a fish in the lake quietly transformed into a water bird and soared into the sky. Instantly, the bird disappeared. Chapter 857. Gu Qingshan stood in front of the Taoist temple's gate and looked up. The walls of the Taoist temple reached all the way to the sky, without any end in sight. According to this world's subsystem, the Taoist temple was a place to store cultivation scriptures, weapons, and treasures from the bygone era. But because this world was under the desolate race's control, it had never had any contact with human cultivators. No. From the looks of it, it wasn't under the desolate race's control, but rather a clone of the Soul Shrieker. In terms of strength, the Soul Shrieker's clone was invincible among the desolate race, capable of slaughtering the divine race as if they were livestock. But it allowed Xie Gu Hong's group to enter this place. Gu Qingshan stayed silent briefly, then acted. He put his hand on the Taoist temple's gate. Immediately, a voice came from the gate. Frowny face. Welcome, human civilian, young boy. This place contains a large number of cultivation-type inheritances and treasures, a total of 36 floors, Each floor contains countless treasures and scriptures. Attention, you may only choose a single treasure during this entry. Some treasures have a certain degree of backlash, some treasures will automatically choose their own master, as well as other situations. You must be careful, keep that in mind. Rumble rumble. The gate opened on both sides. Gu Qingshan leapt into the Taoist temple. The first floor of the Taoist temple was completely empty, only a single warp formation was set up at the center. Gu Qingshan scanned it with his inner sight. This was a short-distance warp formation. A short-distance warp formation was one of the simplest types of formation. In fact, this formation from the bygone era wasn't too different from the ones from the future. The various grooves of the warp formation had already been filled with spirit stones, ready to be used at any time. Gu Qingshan was already a top-notch formation user, so he circled around the warp formation and carefully sensed the state of each spirit stone. These spirit stones contained quite a bit of spirit energy, forming a gentle and balanced flow of spirit energy. Around the formation, the residual spirit energy fluctuations had already calmed down, but there was still an extremely faint spatial fluctuation in the void of space. Half an hour later. From the intensity of this fluctuation, the last time the formation was activated was about half an hour ago. There's no mistaking it, it must be Xie Guhong's group. Gu Qingshan leapt onto the formation. Buzz. The formation was instantly activated and brought Gu Qingshan away from this floor. The second floor. Gu Qingshan appeared on a high platform. Looking at the scene in front of him, he was slightly shocked. Below the platform was a vast ocean that flickered with a metallic luster. All sorts of weapons and armors were piled up densely, layer upon layer, and were simply innumerable. As far as the eye could see, it was impossible to see just how deep these artifacts were piled. Even with Gu Qingshan's eyesight, she could only see what seemed to be another high platform in the distance. Gu Qingshan leapt up from the platform and activated ground shrink. He didn't want to take a second look at this ocean filled with treasures. The burly man was waiting at the entrance of the world, trying to stall me. Since that's the case, Gu Qingshan decided to buy as much time as he could to take a look at what was going on. At the very next moment, Gu Qingshan had already passed through this vast ocean of weapons and reached another high platform. It was still a warp formation. The indentations on the formation were still filled with spirit stones. As soon as Gu Qingshan stood on it, he was teleported away. He left the second floor and arrived at the third floor. This floor was different from the one before it. Below the high platform, there were countless talismans floating quietly. The elemental talismans were glowing with the corresponding elemental light. The buffing talismans didn't glow, but there were runes revolving around the talismans that manifested in the void of space. The space-type talismans gathered by themselves to form a distorted space. There were also various other mysterious talismans that found their own corners and stayed there by themselves. Gu Qingshan only glanced through them without feeling tempted. He quickly found the high platform that led to the next floor, so he used ground shrink again and moved up. The fourth floor. Clouds drifted around. Below the high platform were scriptures and scriptures. These scriptures weren't complicated at all, so there was no need to specifically pass down images or thoughts. They could just be recorded in books. Gu Qingshan knew that there must be some important sword techniques among them. Although there was no such thing as a secret art in the bygone era, every single strike and strike was a world-shaking sword technique. From the development of swordsmanship, the cultivators of the future didn't have a high enough cultivation and spirit energy, so they couldn't help but think of a way to concentrate all of their power into a single strike to unleash a powerful attack. This was how secret arts were created. Purely from the perspective of swordsmanship, this could be considered a type of progress. If he gave the secret art to those ancient sword cultivators, with their top-notch cultivation and abundant spirit energy, the secret art would be able to unleash even more power. Gu Qingshan only hesitated for a split second before giving up on the chance to choose a scripture. There's something more important to do right now. His figure flashed and leapt onto the high platform that led to the next floor. The 5th floor. Spirit energy converged to form a small stream that flowed around a lush green island. This was an ancient spirit botanical island that was filled with all sorts of rare and precious plants. Gu Qingshan scanned around with her inner sight, but didn't find Xie Guhong anywhere, so she leapt onto the high platform that led to the next floor. Sure enough, the indentations on the warp formation had already been filled with spirit stones. Gu Qingshan activated the formation and left this floor. The 6th floor. Countless precious smithing materials floated in the air. The 7th floor. There were all sorts of small treasure tools here, mainly clothing items like earrings, thumb rings, hair bands, jade pendants, and so on. The 8th floor. From this floor onwards there were a lot fewer things. Gu Qingshan glanced at the tortoiseshell in the middle of the floor. The tortoiseshell gave off an indescribable sense of vicissitudes. It was even giving off a faint gray glow that rose straight up to the sky. This was a top-grade divination treasure. Even with Gu Qingshan's spirit sense, she could faintly sense some vague images from it. Gu Qingshan sighed. Although I've never practiced divination before, with this tortoiseshell, both Xie Dao Ling and Qin Shaolu can guarantee that Bai Hua sect will be able to foretell the future for the next few hundred years. Gu Qingshan suddenly thought of something. Did the humans of the bygone era leave in a hurry because they knew too much? Shaking his head, Gu Qingshan didn't think about it anymore. His figure flashed, leapt onto the high platform that led to the next floor, activated the formation, and left. The 9th floor. Hazy specks of light floated in the air like fireflies dancing under the high platform. Seeing this, Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. This was a spirit bestowment technique from the age of old, which turned a certain thaumaturgy into light to form sprites of light. If one wanted to use it, they would need to take a sprite of light and put it into an artifact. Some powerful thaumaturgy that could move mountains and fill oceans were passed down from dead cultivators through this method. But this method had already been lost. Gu Qingshan didn't have the time to look into the secrets of these spirit bestowment technique. He left again. The 10th floor. At this floor, there were even fewer treasures, but their rarity had also greatly increased. Gu Qingshan decided not to look at these treasures to avoid being unable to control his thoughts. He flew onto the high platform that led to the next floor. The warp formation here was still filled with spirit stones. Gu Qingshan sighed emotionally. Even with so many treasures here, Xie Guhong didn't care for any of them. So what exactly is Xie Guhong doing right now? The light of the formation flashed. Gu Qingshan disappeared from this floor. The 11th floor. There were 30 sets of armors on this floor. Even though they weren't worn by anyone and were just sitting there, they still exuded a sense of power and beauty, enough to make anyone want to pick one up and take it away. Gu Qingshan turned around and left. The 12th floor. More than 20 pills were jumping and playing around under the high platform. They had gained sentience and sentience, never mind consuming them, just carrying them around would greatly benefit a cultivator. The 13th floor. 18 formation plates silently hovered in the air. Various supernatural phenomena were constantly manifesting in the void of space around the formation plate. Gu Qingshan was a bit anxious. Why isn't there even a single clue? Which floor did Xie Guhong go to? The 14th floor. There were many spirit beast summoning talismans on this floor. Gu Qingshan didn't know how the bygone era humanity ensured that these spirit beasts could survive until now. Time was of the essence, so he didn't have the time to investigate this miraculous matter. The 15th floor. Many jade plates were floating in the air. These talismans could open certain bygone era heaven's grotto heaven. Gu Qingshan was a bit tempted. But Xie Guhong was still nowhere to be seen. He had no choice but to continue. The 16th floor. Sect Master Zhao, you're here as well, a familiar voice called out. Gu Qingshan was surprised. Xiegu Hong and the white-haired old man were both standing in front of a row of jade tags. The two of them were both looking at him. Gu Qingshan noticed that Xiegu Hong was holding a bronze mirror in his hand. Bronze mirror? Gu Qingshan quickly walked forward and smiled. I didn't think this place would really be humanity's inheritance ground. Palace Master Xie, did you choose this bronze mirror? Xiegu Hong replied. This is a treasure that fellow Dao Seeker Lin left behind before he died. Fellow Dao Seeker Lin was the burly man. Fellow Dao Seeker Lin died? Gu Qingshan asked in surprise. The white-haired old man spoke with a heavy tone. Fellow Dao Seeker Lin chose this bronze mirror, but when he used it, he received backlash and died from backlash. Gu Qingshan repeated. Chapter 858. This wasn't some sort of backlash at all. The martial cultivator Lin didn't die at all. At the same time, this Void Revolution realm martial cultivator was standing right in front of the world entrance. He was patiently explaining the greatness of the eternal true God to Shanu. But Xiegu Hong and the white-haired old man didn't know that. Xiegu Hong and the white-haired old man had never seen the Soul Shrieker, nor did they know what the Eternal Abyss was, nor had they ever seen a cultivator endlessly resurrecting after death. So even with their cultivation, they couldn't discover such unimaginable things from a dead person. That was why they mistakenly believed that the martial cultivator Lin was dead. He died from the backlash of the ancient mirror. Then, what kind of secret was hidden inside the ancient mirror that the martial cultivator Lin didn't hesitate to use his life to create a lie for Xiegu Hong and the white-haired old man to see? Gu Qingshan glanced at the white-haired old man. Nothing unusual. He doesn't seem to know anything. If that's the case, Gu Qingshan sighed. For the sake of humanity's future, fellow Dao Seeker Lin was willing to sacrifice his own life. Truly a role model for all of us. Xiegu Hong and the white-haired old man both nodded in agreement. Gu Qingshan asked, what kind of secret did he discover? Xiegu Hong handed the bronze mirror to Gu Qingshan and spoke in a disappointed tone. Fellow Dao Seeker Lin used his life to erase the seal on the ancient mirror. Sect Master Zhao, you can take a look at the secret inside with your own eyes. Gu Qingshan received the bronze mirror. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI. Item: Mirror of Light and Shadow recording a description. During the bygone era, humanity used this artifact to record certain secrets. The two lines of glowing text disappeared. Faint images began to appear on the mirror. The desolate race was only created out of convenience by the bygone era humanity. Later on, the bygone-era humans discovered that a few simple tasks could be done by the desolate monsters, so they gradually gave them more power and abilities. And then there was the secret of the birth of the divinities, a failed experiment. A single combat soul artifact that had exceeded its expiration date. The secret of the desolate race and the divinities was displayed in front of Gu Qingshan. These secrets were completely true, and were exactly the same as the information that Gu Qingshan knew. In fact, the scene of the two races harvesting the humans was even more detailed and vivid under the light and shadow. Strange, why did he do this, Sect Master Zhao? Do you think the information recorded in this bronze mirror is real? Xiegu Hong asked. Gu Qingshan smiled bitterly and said, it couldn't be any more true. Xiegu Hong nodded. I've read it many times, combined with a few important historical events. I found that this answer is true. The white-haired old man sighed and said sorrowfully, the fate of our humankind is too humiliating. Xiegu Hong and Gu Qingshan fell silent. The white-haired old man took out a tortoiseshell and began to carefully observe the patterns on it. He began to chant softly. Xiegu Hong asked, Old Meng, what are you calculating? The white-haired old man stopped chanting and replied, This is the burial ground of the bygone era humans. There must be something here that can help us change the current situation and change the fate of humanity. His expression was both sorrowful and resolute. I want to find that thing. Xie Guhong scowled. You can't. To predict the chaotic tides earlier, you've already expended a portion of your vitality. You can't calculate the fate of humanity again. As a Void Wanderer realm great cultivator, it wasn't a big deal for the old man to expend a portion of his vitality to predict the chaotic tides. But now, he wants to calculate the location of the treasure that can change the fate of humanity. This level of calculation had already surpassed the range of normal divination techniques, as it was related to the changes of the entire world. It wasn't something that the white-haired old man could handle. Gu Qingshan also hurriedly stopped him. You're crazy. If you do that, even if you find the powerful treasure, you'll still die here. The white-haired old man continued. Sect Master Zhao, didn't you also want to use your life to avenge the sect? Xie Guhong hurriedly said. But Sect Master Zhao wouldn't make a meaningless sacrifice. You definitely can't perform this divination or you'll die. If I can find a way to fight against the divine race and desolate race, then I can die in peace. Don't stop me, this is my final choice, the white-haired old man declared. Foom. An intense gust of wind erupted from the old man's body, causing his white hair and beard to flutter in the wind. He formed a complicated hand seal with both hands and loudly declared, Burn all of my vitality, calculate the method to defeat the enemy. The tortoise shell in his hand began to crack and crumble, turning into nothingness. From the looks of it, the divination technique had been completed. There's no turning back. The old man is really going to give up his life. Xie Guhong and Gu Qingshan exchanged glances, both feeling a sense of sorrow. The old man hovered in the air and flew towards the next warp formation. He loudly declared, The mysteries of the underworld had descended upon me, allowing me to sense a treasure. Quickly follow me. I can't hold on for much longer. Xie Guhong and Gu Qingshan quickly followed him. The three of them stepped onto the warp formation and disappeared from this floor. The 17th floor, the 18th floor, the 19th floor, the 33rd floor. The old man finally stopped here. At this point, his presence was already very weak. His eye sockets were sunken in. His complexion was haggard, seemingly on the verge of death. With Xie Guhong and Gu Qingshan's help, he struggled to reach a treasure. It was a long piece of dark violet rock that was about 5 meters long. This is it, the old man weakly said. Xie Guhong and Gu Qingshan both looked at the rock. The old man grabbed the rock and tried to squeeze it, but the old man seemed to have no strength left, unable to even break this rock. I'll do it, Gu Qingshan said. He squeezed it, then shook it. The entire rock crumbled into dust, revealing the 2 jade tags inside for the 3 of them to see. The old man jumped forward to grab the 2 jade tags, then coughed up blood. He seemed to have reached the end of his rope. Thank you, Palace Master. The old man breathed heavily and called out. I'm here. Xie Guhong supported the old man and spoke in a low voice. The old man took a deep breath and tried to maintain his voice. I've divined it. This is the forging method for the twin swords heaven and earth. Twin swords heaven and earth? Xie Guhong doubtfully asked. Yes, the twin swords heaven and earth, specifically used to slay divinities and desolate monsters. At this point, the old man began to bleed profusely from his orifices, but he still insisted. These 2 jade tags are made of a very unique material that has never been seen before. To forge the twin swords, you need to fuse these 2 jade tags into the swords. Remember? I'll remember, Xie Guhong sincerely replied. At this point, the old man suddenly became a bit more spirited, his face becoming a bit flushed. Xie Guhong and Gu Qingshan exchanged glances. They both understood that the old man had reached his final moment. The old man took another deep breath and spoke. Promise me you must forge the twin swords heaven and earth, and change the course of humanities. He didn't finish his words, but he couldn't make a single sound. Xie Gu Hong cut in. Don't worry, this Xie Gu Hong will definitely do it. The old man appeared gratified and slowly closed his mouth. His head suddenly tilted, and his entire body sank into the arms of the two people. He was dead. Xie Gu Hong and Gu Qingshan didn't say anything for a while. They supported the old man's body on both sides, feeling a heavy sense of sorrow in their hearts. A while later, Xie Gu Hong stood up first. He carefully put the two jade tags away and spoke with a lonely expression. Sect Master Zhao, have you chosen a treasure yet? Gu Qingshan froze for a split second. He immediately replied, I've already done so. Xie Gu Hong continued, I haven't, so I'm going to head down to the next floor. Once I find what I want, I'll leave this place immediately. Leave immediately? Gu Qingshan asked. Xie Gu Hong resolutely replied, Yes, I have to return. From this moment on, I can no longer take any more risks. I have to bring the forging method of the twin swords heaven and earth back to humanity. Gu Qingshan was still hugging the old man's body inside. You can go, I'll stay with him for a bit longer, don't worry about me. Xie Gu Hong nodded and clasped his fist. Take care. He flew onto the warp formation and left right away. Gu Qingshan was stunned for a while. He gently placed the white-haired old man's body on the ground, still holding one of his hands. For the sake of humanity, what a heroic and noble act, Gu Qingshan muttered. He silently took out a black scepter from the void of space. The skull with a sharp horn on top of the scepter suddenly moved. A red glow appeared from the skull's eye socket. The moment that would cause all the dead to tremble in fear had arrived. The corpse on the ground seemed to have noticed something and abruptly gave off a purple glow. At the very next moment, it gave off an overwhelming presence, as if it had come back to life. This was a transformation that had broken through the boundary of life and death, unimaginable, unexplainable, and even more unexplainable. This was the power of an eternal true God. But Gu Qingshan was still holding its hand. Lightning of life, dream jolt. Dream jolt. After being touched by your lightning spirit energy, the target's consciousness will enter a temporary dreamscape with the lightning, then lose control of their body until 5 seconds later. Note. This is the advanced thaumaturgy of the uncontrollable, stiff, and severance thaumaturgy. No living being would be immune to it. The old man couldn't move at all. The purple glow on his body instantly disappeared. The spell was interrupted. In just a few seconds, he turned from a living person back into an undead body. Gu Qingshan stabbed the Devil King Warden rod into the corpse's chest. The corpse let out a series of desperate screams. It was desperately struggling, trying to come back to life. But as soon as it tried to summon the purple glow, a sword cut through its head. The old man turned back into a corpse. The sword didn't even bother to move. Instead, it directly cut through his throat, cutting off his head again and again. If you try to move again, I'm going to use the scepter, Gu Qingshan muttered. A crimson glow appeared on the Devil King Warden rod. Sensing the power of the scepter dissipating eternally, the corpse froze, no longer daring to move. How impressive, Gu Qingshan commented. Faint, killing intent began to exude from his body. The white-haired old man sensed the murderous aura and begged hysterically, Spare my life! Spare my life! I don't want to die. Gu Qingshan's voice slowly became playful. You are an eternal being, but you can sense the eternal death from my scepter? That's right, I know, this is the presence of the samsara. Huang Quan realm. Saying so, the old man suddenly grabbed the Devil King Warden rod with both hands, trying to do something. But both of his hands instantly exploded into a bloody mist as he screamed in agony. This was the Devil King's scepter, one of the 3 supreme powers of the Huang Quan realm. How could a lowly undead like him ever touch it? Gu Qingshan held the scepter, lowered his head, and silently stared at the dead man in front of him. Do you want to live? He asked. I do, the white-haired old man nodded. In reality, If he didn't want to live eternally, why would he ever betray his past? You want to live? Very well. Gu Qing Shan lightly turned the scepter. The old man's chest was pierced through by the scepter, so he immediately felt intense pain. Aowa! Spare me, I beg you. I'll do anything you want me to do, the old man shouted. Gu Qing Shan stopped what he was doing and felt a bit relieved. From Xie Gu Hong's point of view, that martial cultivator's death was real, and the information in the mirror was also real. Even I couldn't find a single flaw in that information, so your death was also real. No wonder Xie Gu Hong was able to find the jade tags to forge the twin swords Heaven and Earth, and spent so much time and effort to forge them. No wonder the desolate race didn't try to stop humanity from forging the twin swords Heaven and Earth no matter the time. No matter the time? The white-haired old man didn't quite understand. Gu Qing Shan shook his head. Chapter 859. The old man laid on the ground, moaning in pain from being pierced by the Devil King Warden rod. He tried his best to control his voice and spoke. You want to know the secret of the twin swords Heaven and Earth? Gu Qing Shan replied. Of course, that's exactly why I'm here. The old man stared closely at Gu Qing Shan and gritted his teeth. The eternal true God had planned for a very long time to reach this point, yet you want to ruin it in my hands? I'll definitely be devoured by the true God after this. If you don't tell me, then die right now, Gu Qing Shan said without hesitation. The Devil King Warden rod glowed with crimson and darkness. They weaved together to form a strange cluster of light that slowly spread towards the old man's body through the rod. This was the scepter's soul dissipation ability. Dead people who were devoured by the Devil King Warden rod would only become nutrients for the Devil King Warden rod, unable to revive. Kakik. A series of noises came from inside the Devil King Warden rod, as if it was preparing to eat. The old man trembled uncontrollably. As a dead person, he couldn't suppress the fear he felt when facing the Devil King Warden rod. All of a sudden, the old man broke down and cried, I'm only a minion, how could I possibly know what the true God wants to do? I beg you, spare my life. I'll even become your servant from now on. Gu Qing Shan replied without changing her expression. I can tell that the Soul Shrieker is taking this matter very seriously. That martial cultivator's job was only to stall me. The one who initiated this entire matter was you. A minion wouldn't receive that much trust from the higher-ups, nor would they be assigned such an important task. That's why you're not a minion. Don't try to lie to me. The old man froze. I don't accept any begging, Gu Qing Shan coldly said. One last time, tell me or die. His killing intent became even heavier. The old man stared at her emotionless eyes. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, but he couldn't think of any way for himself to survive. He sighed and couldn't help but say, First tell me, how did you discover the truth? Only then will I dare to tell you about the twin swords Heaven and Earth. Gu Qing Shan asked, Is this a deal? That's right, if the reason we failed was because of the true God's own arrangements, it wouldn't have easily eaten us subordinates, the old man said. I have to ensure that I can survive before I can tell you what you want to know. Otherwise, why would I do this? Gu Qing Shan pondered for a moment and said, A deal is a rule that I recognize. Fine, I can tell you, but if you go back on your word, I'll make you disappear forever. It's a deal, the old man said. Gu Qing Shan shook her head and said, Actually, this matter is too simple, so I didn't even think about it before I found your flaw. The old man could not help but ask, What do you mean? Gu Qing Shan said slowly, Because I was stopped as soon as I came to this world. Your God is still in another world and is being held back by my people. But he is afraid that I will ruin his plan, so he sent someone to wait for me, hoping to stall me for a while. If he wants to stall me, it must be because his plan in this world is still in progress. After getting rid of the person who tried to stop me, I caught up to you and Xie Gu Hong, the simplest method of elimination. Between the two of you, one of you must be preparing to do something. In short, either you or Xie Guhong has an issue. I only need to follow and watch. After you died, the only one who has an issue is Xie Guhong, but at this point, I can't be sure if you're truly dead or if you're faking your death due to the Soul Shrieker's resurrection property. At this point, to find the crux of the issue, I only need to perform a simple screening to see if you're truly dead or not. So you're faking your death? Then the issue lies in what you've done, from start to finish. You've only done a single thing. You told Xie Guhong how important the twin swords heaven and earth are to humanity's fate. If there's an issue with you, then there's also an issue with what you've done. Because of that, there must be an issue with the twin swords heaven and earth. Gu Qingshan sighed. I'm too lazy to repeat this kind of childish deduction a second time. The white-haired old man froze briefly. After a bit of thought, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you also an entity from the eternal abyss?" Gu Qingshan didn't answer. His voice became cold and emotionless. "Don't worry about my identity, it's time for you to complete our deal. I'll ask you one last time, why did you purposely give the jade tag for the twin swords heaven and earth to Xie Guhong?" The old man looked at Gu Qingshan, then at the Devil King Rod, recalling what she said just now. His expression slowly became dejected. The old man sighed. "A true god needs a weapon." "A weapon?" Gu Qingshan asked. The old man replied, "Yes, I don't know the specifics, but it requires the most precious materials of the eternal abyss to forge the twin swords heaven and earth. For humanity, although these two swords can be used as swords, they are only important components of that weapon." Gu Qingshan asked. "At the time, you had Xie Guhong fuse the two jade tags into the twin swords heaven and earth because the jade tags themselves were materials from the eternal abyss?" "That is indeed the case. You reacted too quickly," the old man sighed. "Why didn't the Soul Shrieker forge it itself?" Gu Qingshan asked. The old man hesitated a bit, then gritted his teeth. "The twin swords heaven and earth must be forged using extremely precise techniques for several years in order to complete. The true god's main body is still in slumber, only a split body has awoken. The purpose of the split body's existence is to provide nutrients for the main body. It's proficient in combat, but not weaponsmithing. Because of that, the split body must rely on the power of an intelligent race to forge the twin swords. The split body believes that cultivators are very weak. They have the wisdom and skill to forge weapons, but they aren't a threat, so it decided to make arrangements." Gu Qingshan silently listened to him and asked, "Why is its main body in a slumber state?" "I'm not sure about that," the old man replied. "Did the split body say why it wanted to forge the twin swords heaven and earth?" Gu Qingshan asked again. "To complete that weapon, I really don't know the specifics," the old man replied. Gu Qingshan threw out another question. "Didn't you rely on it? Why didn't you just find someone to help it forge it?" "That won't do," the old man smiled bitterly. "To forge the twin swords heaven and earth requires at least 5 to 10 3,000 worlds level combatants," the old man continued. "Combatants of that level might not be able to win against the split body, but they wouldn't be controlled by it either. After all, it couldn't enter the primordial heaven realm." Gu Qingshan asked in surprise. "You said it couldn't enter the primordial heaven realm?" "Indeed, during the bygone era, the primordial heaven realm was protected by a unique defensive mechanism. As soon as a true god appeared inside, they would be transported out," the old man replied. "But as the Lord of Desolation, it could enter," Gu Qingshan commented. "It could only stay for a short while. Once the time was up, it would still be discovered and transported out," the white-haired old man replied. Gu Qingshan was surprised. No wonder the Lord of Desolation left so quickly after killing the Divine King during the last war. It turns out it couldn't stay for too long. The old man continued. "More importantly, although the true God provided the main material and method to forge the twin swords heaven and earth, he didn't provide the other materials." "The other materials?" Gu Qingshan asked. "Indeed, these two swords require the combined strength of both the divine race and humanity, as well as all of the primordial heaven realm's resources. Even the bodies and souls of a few divine race and humans would be required to truly forge them, the old man replied. Gu Qingshan muttered. If that's the case, both the divine race and humanity would rather die in battle to protect themselves than to forge the twin swords heaven and earth, the old man continued. Because of that, the best solution would be to set up a trap and deceive humanity. Hearing that, Gu Qingshan couldn't help but sigh deeply. Indeed, when humanity is in deep despair, they would sacrifice all of their resources and even their souls, placing the hope of humanity on these two swords. Chapter 860. The white-haired old man observed Gu Qingshan's expression. It wasn't until Gu Qingshan's frown loosened that the old man carefully spoke. As per your request, I've told you everything I know. I beg you, please let me go. Saying so, the old man was already sobbing. Gu Qingshan didn't say anything and simply pulled. The Devil King Warden Rod left the old man's body and was put into the void of space by Gu Qingshan. The old man quickly retreated. While retreating, he quickly circulated the purple glow around his body. With the help of the eternal power, the old man became a living person again in just one breath's worth of time. At this moment, his face was filled with an expression as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. That Rod was too terrifying, able to completely control a dead person like him. Only by becoming a living person again would the fear and despair in his heart slowly disappear. However, this person is so naive that he didn't kill me? The old man appeared confused and couldn't help but ask, "You really won't kill me?" Gu Qingshan replied, "I'm a person who follows the rules of a deal. Since I said I'll use your life to exchange for information, I'll definitely do it." The old man shook his head. "I didn't think you'd be so naive. In this world, only the dead can keep secrets. Once I survive and report what happened to you to the true God, you won't be able to escape from his grasp." "I don't think so. I think only an idiot would use death to keep secrets," Gu Qingshan replied. "Idiot," the old man said. Boom! Boundless spiritual power erupted from his body. In a split second, the old man's hands turned into blurred images as he quickly formed a complicated hand seal. The hand seal was complete. At this moment, the old man only needed to infuse his spirit energy into the hand seal to unleash a powerful thaumaturgy. "An idiot like you managed to become the sect master of the Drifting Moon Immortal Sect. It seems the Drifting Moon Immortal Sect's destruction is only natural," the old man smirked. When he was about to infuse his spirit energy, he saw that Gu Qingshan was casually looking at him with her hands behind her back. The old man, an indescribable feeling started to accumulate in his heart. This bastard. He had clearly obtained an immortal body long ago. He was clearly prepared to unleash a full set of powerful killing technique. But why did she not dare to make a move when she saw him like that? The old man could not help but ask, "You're just standing there casually. Are you prepared to die in my hands?" Gu Qingshan replied, "No." The old man asked, "Do you think that if you spare me once, I will be grateful to you?" "That's not it. I just think that with your intelligence, you'll definitely understand the key to this," Gu Qingshan said. The old man was startled. "With my level of intelligence, bastard. I don't know anything." The old man was about to go crazy. At this time, Gu Qingshan's voice came. "What is your mission?" The old man replied, "Of course to have Xie Daoling take the jade tag containing the twin swords heaven and earth." As soon as he finished speaking, he was stunned once more. "That's right. I've already completed the true God's mission." Gu Qingshan continued. "My subordinates have trapped your God in the other world, but they won't be able to hold him for long. You should quickly leave. I'll be leaving soon as well." The old man was stunned again. "That's right, I've already completed the mission, so I'll definitely be rewarded by the true God. But if I can't defeat Zhao Wuzong in a short amount of time..." "Wait a minute. Zhao Wuzong is the sect master of Drifting Moon Immortal Sect. He has countless treasures and powerful means. not to mention his cultivation is a bit higher than mine. Although I have an immortal body, it's not easy to defeat him. Both sides will definitely fall into a stalemate. This will be a long battle. At that time, the true God will personally come to take a look. I'll still be fighting someone. The true God will definitely capture Zhao Wuzong. If the true God asks, how am I supposed to explain this? Am I supposed to tell the true God that I was pressed to the ground and tortured, then divulged the true God's secret? The old man trembled. Regardless of the situation, divulging the true God's secret is the worst form of betrayal. In front of the eternal true God, the consequences of betrayal are. The old man couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. This definitely can't happen. He immediately stopped his hand seals and awkwardly said, "Then I'll be leaving first. You should also leave quickly. Don't run into the true God." Without hesitation, the old man's body moved and landed on a patch of ground with a pattern of white clouds. Noticing that Gu Qingshan was staring at him, he patiently explained, "This is the exit, there's one on each floor. As soon as you've chosen your item, it will transport you back to the desolate world. All right, take care." Gu Qingshan clasped her fist and said, "You too, take care." The old man habitually clasped his fist in return. His figure disappeared from the white cloud. As soon as he disappeared, the old man finally realized that he was clasping his fist to say goodbye. This person, what is he? For some reason, a thought suddenly appeared in the old man's mind. I don't want to run into this sect master Zhao ever again. Even if I have to fight against him for several days, even if I have to climb a mountain of blades or dive into a sea of flames, that's fine. I really don't want to run into him ever again. After the old man left, Gu Qingshan waved her hand. A few strands of silver hair on the ground flew into the air, carefully collected into a small bag, then put it into her inventory bag. Just now, when I used Dream Jolt to suppress him and the Chao Yin sword to cut his throat, I also cut off some of his hair. I might be able to use these hairs at an appropriate time. After all, it's always better to prepare more than less. Gu Qingshan put the items away and fell into thought again. So the twin swords heaven and earth were weapons from the eternal abyss. They were only a part of a certain weapon. The Soul Shrieker's plan had already failed. From what I know, when Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace was destroyed, Xie Guhong had Huang Zhan take the damaged earth sword away. But I've entered that fragment and know that out of the 3 disciples, only Shen Yang survived. Shen Yang brought the earth sword and the sleeping Xie Dao Ling into a certain fragment of the samsara. That was the cultivation world of the future. Shen Yang was most likely injured during his battle against Zhao Quan, so he wasn't able to properly inherit the Tao of Barren Cloud Heavenly Palace. Because of that, the cultivation world's standards had always been low, so they didn't even understand a lot of necessary knowledge. Throughout history, the Earth Sword was passed down, and Xie Daoling also survived. Perhaps even the Soul Shrieker didn't expect that the Earth Sword would suddenly disappear from the primordial heaven realm due to the persecution of the divinities. As for the Heaven Sword, it was hidden away by humanity using the Phantom Images technique. Neither of these 2 swords would be easy to find. That's why, at the end of the Age of Old, the twin swords heaven and earth weren't taken away, nor did they become weapons of the eternal abyss. The Soul Shrieker's plan failed. But, I traveled through countless years and returned to the Age of Old from the distant future. I brought the Earth Sword with me. The Heaven Sword's hiding place was also slowly being revealed. This gave the eternal true God a second chance to steal the twin swords. The mysteries of fate are truly inexplicable. Gu Qingshan scowled and tried to come up with a solution. It's actually very simple to resolve this. The Earth Sword was already on the verge of breaking. As long as I destroy the Earth Sword, the eternal true God's second chance would disappear. With that in mind, Gu Qingshan couldn't help but shake her head. Suddenly, strands of spirit energy rose from the platform. Gu Qingshan immediately looked up. Zhao Wuzong had appeared on the warp formation. The two Zhao Wuzong's eyes met. Neither of them were the real Zhao Wuzong. Ah? So fast? Where's that martial cultivator? Gu Qingshan asked. He ran away, Shanna replied. As soon as he saw that white-haired old man, the two of them left together. They didn't say anything. The old man said that the mission was complete and that they had to retreat, so the martial cultivator quickly followed him. Ah, that's simple, Gu Qingshan commented. Shanu took out a communication talisman and gave it to Gu Qingshan. Whose is this? Gu Qingshan was surprised. Shanu replied. That martial cultivator wanted me to join their group, so he was enthusiastically talking to me before he left. Perhaps he felt a bit regretful, so he left me his contact number. The old man didn't do anything? He didn't. He had a very strange expression on his face. What expression? It's hard to describe. Shanu thought for a bit, then replied. Like a person running into a wall. I understand now, Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu landed next to Gu Qingshan and silently glanced at him a few times. Gongzi, you don't look too happy. Did something happen? Gu Qingshan then explained the situation. Shanu went silent for a bit, then said, I've thought of a way to prevent the Soul Shrieker from succeeding. What way? Gu Qingshan asked. If the Earth Sword is destroyed, the Soul Shrieker's plan will fail, Shanu softly replied. Fool, we're here to save the Earth Sword, not to destroy it, Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu anxiously said, but if that's the case, Gongzi might have to compete with the Soul Shrieker for the twin swords Heaven and Earth. It's too powerful, we have no hope, Gu Qingshan replied. I want to try, Shanu was worried. Gongzi, in our own era, even the lords of the 900 million World Layers Alliance weren't a match for it. Don't try too hard, Gu Qingshan shook her head. Shanu, do you know what true despair is? Shanu asked. Is there a huge disparity in strength? Gu Qingshan shook her head. No, true despair is knowing nothing. An unknown enemy, an unknown secret, an unknown environment, in short, you don't know anything at all. At that moment, you can only fight with everything you have and can't think of any strategy at all. But now that we know a lot of information and have seen the Soul Shrieker's battle with our own eyes, our chances of winning are constantly increasing. I won't let the Earth Sword die, I swear. In the end, the Heaven Sword will also be ours. I won't give that true deity any chance. Hearing that, Shanu's expression finally calmed down. If Gongzi says that our chances of winning are constantly increasing, then it must be true. If Gongzi says that the Earth Sword won't die, then it definitely won't die. Chapter 861. Gongzi, what do we do now? Do we return? Shanu asked. Of course not, it wasn't easy for us to come out, we should at least get something out of here, Gu Qingshan replied. What is it? Shanu asked. Gu Qingshan pointed below her feet. This place is a treasure trove. I spent so much time just now that Xie Guhong has probably finished picking his treasures and left. It's my turn now. Treasures? What kind of treasures do you want to pick, Gongzi? Shanu curiously asked. I'm also thinking. This is already the 33rd floor. From what I've seen so far, the higher we go, the fewer things there are, but the more valuable they are, so... At this point, Gu Qingshan seemed to have remembered something and loudly asked. Right, Shanu, you're still in your human form, right? That's right, Gongzi. Do I need to return to my sword spirit form? Shanu doubtfully asked. Please don't. Gu Qingshan hurriedly stopped her. Why not? Shanu doubtfully asked. Gu Qingshan explained. There are two of us right now, which means we can pick two treasures here before we leave. He felt a bit excited. It's been a long time since I've found anything decent. Even the armor he wore at the front lines last time was lent to him by a fire spirit cultivator. It was the fire spirit cultivator's family armor. Unfortunately, this cultivator died on the front lines without the armor. After the war ended, Gu Qingshan found the fire spirit cultivator's family and silently sent the armor back. At the time, not only did he send the armor back, he also left quite a bit of cultivation resources for the fire spirit cultivator's son. Indeed, this was only a fragment of a phantom image, not the real spacetime of the past. But Gu Qingshan wouldn't betray his comrades' trust just because of that, regardless of what kind of person they were. Shanna looked around and asked, Gongzi, there are a lot of obviously precious treasures here, aren't you going to take a look? This floor contained a lot of rare bygone-era materials that could be used to make powerful treasures. Not only this floor, but the entire temple was a world of treasures from the bygone era. Gu Qingshan replied, There's no need. Just understanding the usage of these materials would require a lot of effort. If we want to process these materials, we'll need an extremely high cultivation and the corresponding means. We don't have the time for that, so let's go and take a look at the next level. Yes, Gongzi. Shanu looked at the rare materials reluctantly and answered. The two of them flew onto the teleportation array and headed for the next floor. 34th floor. Gu Qingshan turned around slowly. From time to time, he would touch here and there out of curiosity. Shanu asked, Gongzi, didn't you tell me that the old man told you to leave as soon as possible because he was afraid of a true god? Ah yes. Gu Qingshan answered casually while fiddling with an ice conch. Young master, why don't you seize the time to pick something and run away? Is Gongzi not afraid of that eternal true god coming? Shanna curiously asked. Gu Qingshan was surprised. Why would it come? It had perfectly achieved its goal, and that old man would tell it that I ran away. Are you sure, Gongzi? It must be carefully protecting Xie Guhong right now, afraid that something might happen to Xie Guhong. Then what if it really came to check? Shanu didn't let it go. If you put it that way. Gu Qingshan took out a teleportation talisman and said, First of all, this Taoist temple only allows humans to enter, so it would take a while for it to dismantle this structure. Not to mention, I've already tested it, my teleportation talisman isn't restricted here, so I can leave whenever I want. Shanu patted her chest. If that old man really did prepare for you, then I can rest assured. Help me pick something as well, Gu Qingshan said. Shanu is a sword spirit, so she has a different perspective, so she might be able to help me pick out a few good things. All right, Shanu replied. The two of them split up and began to wander around the 34th floor. Not too long later. Gongzi, come quickly! Shanu called out from afar. Gu Qingshan walked over. Look! Shanu pointed at a set of armor. Gu Qingshan looked. In front of them was a beautifully crafted armor that gave off a faint glow, silently hovering in the air. It's the strongest armor I've ever seen, Gu Qingshan commented. Is that so? I tried to cut it myself just now, but it didn't leave any marks, so this must be an extremely rare armor, Shanu continued. Gongzi is a sword cultivator, so what you need the most is a set of armor with excellent defensive capabilities, so you might as well choose this one. Gu Qingshan muses. That's true, if a sword cultivator has a suitable armor, they'll be like a tiger that has grown wings on the battlefield, but what? Shanu asked. Shanu, haven't you noticed? This is a female armor, it doesn't fit my waist, Gu Qingshan shrugged. He suddenly understood and said with a smile, You want to wear this set of armor? Shanu? Me? Shanu froze. That's right, if you want this armor, you can take it. After all, I also think that such a powerful armor is hard to come by, Gu Qingshan replied. Shanu waved her hand dismissively. Gongzi, did you forget? I have the invincible property, so I won't be harmed under normal circumstances. The Six Paths Great Mountain Sword has the thaumaturgy. Invincible. All powers and techniques of the 10 worlds cannot destroy this sword. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit. But you were heavily wounded in Huangquan, Shanu replied. I remember telling you before, when I was in slumber, the descendants of the divine race purposefully set up a trap for me, using a method that specifically targets weapon spirits to harm me. But now that Gongzi is my master, I won't give anyone the chance to harm me like that. Gu Qingshan thought about it for a bit. Indeed, at the time, there was nothing in Huangquan that could stop the seven-colored spear, so I asked the weapons of Huangquan to bring me to find a weapon that could. And that was Shanu. So you don't really want to wear this armor, but you really want me to wear it. But I'm a man, Gu Qingshan said. Shanu replied, gold is easy to find, but armor is hard to find. Gongzi, you'll have to bear with it for a bit. As long as you transform into me, you'll be able to wear this armor. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. If I transform into Shanu, I'll become a woman. If I transform into a woman, I'll be able to wear this bygone-era female armor whenever I want. Ah, that's not a bad idea at all. Not a bad idea at all. This idea is too dangerous. I've never wanted to be a woman before. Gu Qingshan took a deep breath and smiled warmly at Shanu. You're very considerate. I'll take a look, a bit more. If there's no better choice, I'll take this armor. Very well, Shanu happily replied. After leaving the Huangquan path and seeing so many worlds, Shanu's perspective and mentality had slowly changed. Although her personality was still cold, she was happy to be able to help Gongzi pick out a set of armor. Gu Qingshan began to wander around again. This time, his pace was a lot faster. There are a lot of good things, but none of them suit me. Wait a minute. Gu Qingshan suddenly saw something. He stopped and walked towards that item. It was a jade pendant carved out of white jade, with a faint layer of mist drifting around it to hide the shape of the jade pendant. When Gu Qingshan looked at the jade pendant, the mist around it completely dispersed, revealing the true appearance of the jade pendant. It was a jade gourd. Seeing the dispersed mist, Gu Qingshan stopped. He lightly called out, "Come!" The jade pendant fluttered in the air and floated towards Gu Qingshan. Shanu was surprised. "Gongzi, this is—" Gu Qingshan replied, "That's right, a person chooses an item, and an item also chooses a person. Perhaps it feels that I'm worthy of it." Who would have thought the situation that the subworld warned him about would actually happen? Gu Qingshan didn't receive any backlash from anything, but a jade pendant recognized him as its master. This was a miraculous thing. Gu Qingshan and Shanu stood still, waiting for the jade pendant to fly over. A few dozen seconds later, the jade gourd pendant was flying extremely slowly, still not reaching Gu Qingshan. Shanu looked at the jade gourd pendant and scowled. "If you want to follow Gongzi, why are you flying so slowly?" The jade gourd pendant shook a bit and sped up a bit. But it was still very slow. Gu Qingshan used a telekinesis hand seal to put the jade pendant away. "Gongzi?" Shanu doubtfully asked. "It's been 100 million years, it's been too long, I think it might not have much strength left. I also like it, so I wanted to express my sincerity." Gu Qingshan sighed emotionally. Shanu smiled. "A gentleman doesn't leave his body without a reason. This jade pendant is quite suitable for Gongzi. I'm not a gentleman, I'm only a sword cultivator," Gu Qingshan replied. As he stared at the jade gourd pendant, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god Ui frowny face bygone era artifact, jade pendant. Adorable. This jade pendant was naturally formed, manifested from the bygone era's heaven and earth Zhongxiu, always hidden and invisible, only appearing when it is happy to see someone. This jade pendant has the thaumaturgy, borrowing heaven and earth. This jade pendant has the thaumaturgy, 100 lanterns. This jade pendant has the thaumaturgy, spotless jade. Description: only when the jade pendant tells you personally will you know the specific properties of the thaumaturgy. Reading the last line of description, Gu Qingshan couldn't help but frown. Among the things he had come into contact with, only the most powerful of entities could have such a situation. The Earth Sword, Chao Yin Sword, and Shanu had all personally told Gu Qingshan what kind of power he had. It was normal for a flying sword to have such a situation. But now, a tiny jade pendant was able to reach such a level. Gu Qing Shan's gaze fell onto the second line of glowing text. From the literal meaning, it means that when the jade pendant wants to see someone, it will appear on its own. Aside from this situation, no one would be able to find it normally. This isn't simple at all. Gu Qing Shan muttered. Seems quite impressive, Xiao. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.